Welcome to day 2 of Sweden Innovation Days, enabling innovation the Swedish way. And for all of you out there slightly rolling your eyes and thinking, the Swedish way? You might be thinking these guys lack a healthy dose of humility. Let me help you read between the lines. Sweden is a tiny country, and no doubt about it, we punch above our weight in terms of innovation. It's the birthplace of global brands and multinational corporations, ABBA and unicorns. And it's not a small part because we are just that, a tiny country. Global from day one and an international scope is a necessity and by now engraved in our DNA. Yesterday was an exciting day of inspirational speakers and sober warnings of potential inhabitable futures unless we get our act together. They did all, on some level, stress upon us collaboration, co-creation, cooperation. Not because it's easy, but because it's difficult and essential. And a tiny country needs to leverage all its assets. And one of the indirect outcomes of is a nation of collaborators. I'm exaggerating slightly, of course, to make my point, but I assure you, Sweden has a lot to offer the international community as we transition to a fossil-free society. And the art of co-creating is one of those things that we do well. It's worth taking note of the Swedish way, and we'll learn more about it today. It is not a pompous doctrine, it's our gift to share after centuries of practice. And I look forward to collaborating with you, Kajsa, especially. We'd love to hear more about you and your work, so let's start with, what do you do at the Swedish Energy Agency?
A lot of things, and thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to be here today. I'm an international coordinator of our international collaborations at our research and innovation department. And in short, that means that I get to meet a lot of clever people from around the world. I get to bring them together. And I get to see the magic happen.
And would you agree with me that this is a Swedish national sport, collaborating, co-creating?
Definitely, and I think definitely is also one of our strengths. I mean, we're restless people. We don't sit around. We don't wait for things to happen. We don't wait for orders. And we go out and find people who are like-minded and who want to create with us. And I think that's a cool
great way of looking at it. And based on what we're going to hear and see today, what are some nuggets, some teasers you can give the viewers?
I'm super excited to learn more about how we develop the north of Sweden through collaboration and through involving the local communities. I'm also super interested in knowing more about the AI and the language developing models and how we can use them to make our lives better.
And I will give you a teaser because Joachim will come back, Joachim Skog from Vinnova, as he will tomorrow, and he will continue his course on how to educate us to be future predictors. Yesterday I can't speak properly. We were taught how to address signals, weak signals, and to correlate them with larger trends. And only in predicting a future or thinking about a future outcome you don't want or that you do want, you can start moving today. But first, we have an opportunity to look at success factors and challenges. The latest IPCC report painted a grim picture, and few of us can feel proud of the state of the transition. And to help us to make sense of those challenges and success factors in achieving hopefully impactful innovation, I have the honor to introduce the opening remarks from the nothing less than remarkable Lisen Schultz from the Stockholm Resilience Center, where you are a sustainability scientist. Thank you, Lisen. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me to this very special occasion. It's an honor, and I'm so happy that you want to take off from the scientific basis of both the situation we're in as humanity on this fragile planet Earth, and also paths forward and what we know about what can actually create successful, impactful innovation. So I wanted to just start with that message from the IPCC, and I quote, that there is a rapidly closing window to secure a livable and sustainable future for all. And also that the choices and actions implemented in this decade will have impacts now and for thousands of years. So we do live in a very decisive moment. And if we are to secure then food and housing and transport and security and health for, say, 9 to 11 billion people on this planet by the end of this century, we really need to start now. And we see that there are 3 big shifts that need to happen. And one is from the fossil fuel-driven energy system to a renewable one. The other one is to go from a linear economy where we take resources, make products and create waste, to a circular one where we reuse everything and where the biological cycles can run unhindered from our progress. And the third one is to really move away from an exploitative mindset to a regenerative one where we collaborate with all life on Earth and each other to create a future that everyone can benefit from. So what does it take then in terms of innovation? Well, I think we do need strategic investments in innovation that bring together actors from civil society, from private sector and public sector, and from academia to innovate around core missions that everyone can agree on and feel attracted to, but where everyone can contribute with different perspectives, different competences, different knowledges to solve those greatest challenges of humankind. This also requires flexible collaboration, a learning mindset where we experiment and allow ourselves to find the pathway as we go, but always with that long-term vision in mind. So I do think that with the capacity that we have built in Sweden, and in particular with the international relationships that we have the ability to really show a pathway forward together towards a clean energy system, sustainable food, and sustainable transport and mobility and housing for all within the capacity of the planet. So that's the message from science, and that, I hope, provides an inspiration to all innovation going forward from here.
Thank you, Lisen, for sharing that. One of the things that we were discussing yesterday was the power of storytelling and framing this in a way that nudges movement in the right direction, because to paraphrase Greta's blah, blah, blah. And you mentioned again the IPCC's warning of this ever-closing window. People in the community have said maybe it was unhelpful for us to frame it as a 1.5 degree goal and then 2 degrees goal, meaning that we didn't understand that every little millimeter counted in that. What's your take?
Yeah,
how to frame it?
It's a very important point, I think, that every 1/10 of a degree matters, and there's no time where we can just sit back and say, oh, we failed, so we just better not do anything about it. There's always an opportunity to create a better future, and every ton of carbon that we avoid emitting will create a better future. And I think it was beautiful to see also in this IPCC report where there are so many solutions that are synergetic, that contribute both to human well-being and health and to the mitigation of climate change and the health of the ecosystem. So it's really not about failing or succeeding. It's about continuously innovating towards that vision. And of course, it's a challenge. It's a global group work that needs to happen at the scale that has never happened before. But it's also a very meaningful challenge that we can all engage in.
Group work will be the theme of the day. Do you have any input for our speakers, or the general theme about input? Any lessons learned?
For group work?
Yes.
Well, I think it's about a combination of having that clear shared vision, the right people in the room who can really, contribute to that and benefit from that, and then having, people who are both authentic about what they want to contribute and what they need, and empathetic to the others. So it's very much about a combination of people skills and analytical skills in moving forward.
Dream scenario, and we don't have time to go be devil's advocate because there are many practical challenges in that recipe that you just gave us. But thank you. That is the clear vision and message. Thank you for opening today for us.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you. And we will now move on to the future, bringing the future into our analysis, allowing us to think about what we would like or what we really don't like in order for us to reinvent the future together. Yesterday was a bit of a mixed bag of dystopian and hopeful news to get us to emotionally react. And Joachim Skog, you gave us our first lesson. Tell us, what are we going to do today?
So today we are once again going to ask ourselves, what if? And why do we do that? Because we need to prepare for the future. We cannot predict the future, but we can immerse ourselves in stories about the future based on signals, facts, evidence that we see around us today. And combining that with some creativity, we do have a chance to actually step into the future and have a feeling about what it could be like. So now we're going to take a short time travel into the future. It's time for a commercial break from the future.
It's no secret that having children today is difficult. Before we make that decision, we really need to think it through. What kind of child do I want? How can I have a child with minimal impact on our climate, but great value for me? We now make that difficult decision easy. The baby builder is born. Thanks to our unique service, you can choose your future child's interests and political values and avoid those awkward discussions in the future. Elite athlete, politician, or CEO. The Baby Builder is equipped with the latest technology so you can control your child's career. Have the child you've always dreamed of without sacrificing your body or your career. All babies produced by us are highly resistant to disease, and we guarantee they will be free of fever and colds for the first 7 years. The longing will soon be over. Start dreaming of a life with your perfect child today. The Baby Builder babies have a maximum life expectancy of 55 years. Government certification is required for increased longevity. Order today to take advantage of the offer with delivery within 24 hours. Maximum 1 order per household. We disclaim all further responsibility should your future child be affected by external factors or not turn out as desired.
So what did that feel like?
Can you order 2?
There might be a special coming up. Any gut feelings? Any reactions? Actually, you guys that you just watched this, I'd like you to go to the chat, because there's a chat in the stage room here. Say hello to your fellow viewers, introduce yourselves, and share whatever feelings this short commercial break gave you. What about your feelings?
We have a baby coming here, an actual baby.
We do.
How does it feel when it's so close to home?
Terrifying and wonderful at the same time. How can you love a second child as much as your first? That's an easy answer to that, of course, when I hold the baby in my arms. But looking at that video, and I was like thinking, I have a 4-year-old at home, sick all the time, you know, kindergarten flus and everything. And I was like, oh, just to have a break from that would be amazing. But I wouldn't design it. The surprise would be gone.
What about you?
Well, I was laughing when I was looking at it, because that is kind of how my daughter sees the world, because she would love a little sister. So she has ordered one, and she's quite specific in what she wants. So when we were talking yesterday about signals, I don't think she would have as much of a challenge as I do in like typing in, this is what I want. And I don't know if it's generational or just the child's naive version of what the reality looks like. And then my spiritual side goes, this happens, but in the spiritual realm, which is I've chosen my daughter on a higher level, but I haven't clicked the buttons. So some part of me goes, yeah, this is just the UX of what already happens.
And actually in the real world also, not saying that the spiritual world does not exist, but in the real world, this has already happened. So this is designed to be very provocative, as I hope some of you guys out there feels. But it's also, this has already been done. CRISPR, gene manipulating, and things like that. So it's not really, well, one part of it was that we can deliver your child. That requires some bioreactors and stuff like that, which might be a bit into the future. Not totally impossible though. So it's built on signals, meant to provoke feelings, and it's really interesting to see that both of you had both a dystopian and utopian sense of this, that it was not only dark. I can reveal that this has been really, us producing this has also been, I mean, it's been questioning ourselves, is this too provocative?
Oh, are we allowed to show this?
Kind of, yes, kind of. Is it? I mean, are we? but it's meant to be provocative, so it's a good thing. It should induce feelings, and I hope to see the chat in a while and see whatever feelings you guys out there have as well.
But the philosophical problematic issue, which comes back to where Lisen started, which is we need to do something within the planetary boundaries. This type of technology or this type of thinking fundamentally means that we believe that we are the primary species on the planet. We have the arrogance and the ability to create ourselves, the ecosystem, and it also implies that we think that we can change the ecosystem damage that we've already done because of our superiority. And I think this superiority discussion is actually more problematic than this actual baby.
Yeah, super interesting also, because when you work, this is an example of speculative design, which is a methodology within foresight. And we've been working with speculative design at Vinnova. We had a call with 11 projects exploring different futures, alternative futures, in a future where climate change had affected us in some way. Prototypes from the future. And actually, the dialogue that follows the experience of a prototype in this case, or a scenario like this, that's what's important. The insights and the dialogue, and what do we do about these insights, the feelings that occurs, and also what kind of future do we want to have. And that's why we're doing this, because we're asking ourselves, we cannot predict the future. It's impossible to predict the future. We can predict the weather. We can try to predict the weather. We can try to predict the weather like 48 hours ahead. That's about it, right? But predicting the future just 5 years ahead, you shouldn't try to do that. What we need to not predict, but be prepared. And by exercising our future thinking skills, by, for instance, watching these kinds of scenarios, or touching a physical artifact visiting us from the future in the present, that gives us a sense of preparedness that's needed in order to develop these future thinking abilities.
What was the most surprising reaction that you got to this video?
So actually, the videos we show at Sweden Innovation Days are brand new and are having their world premiere here.
Okay.
Except for this one, because we did have a preview at a Bifrost Summit event in Silicon Valley just 2 weeks ago, and the reactions, and we had a live audience for that viewing, and it was totally surprising. People laughed. Perhaps something being in the room together, perhaps a bit insecureness, but
or absurdity.
It's absurd, absolutely, and some humor in it. Also interesting to see that the first reactions were like appalled, and then in a few minutes, some said that actually we could use CRISPR for good things. So it's not only like it's a complex issue, and the dialogue that followed was just what we wanted to. We wanted to have a provocation that ended up in a dialogue and people being really constructive in the way they approached the future.
I want to still go down one level deeper to the core of this, the emotional trigger, because at some point you at Vinnova felt that the analytical approach to this isn't enough. We need something further to move the needle. Is that correct?
Yeah, well,
because there's no lack of reports, there's no lack of data,
so,
there's no lack of actual understanding.
So, coming back to the IPCC report that came out Monday, some of us, some can really translate that into like, okay, this is really bad. We have 7 years. That's it. Final call. But we could also, there are so many types of humans out there. We need to address everyone because it's all hands on deck regarding the societal challenges. So how do we do that? Well, we can speak to human emotions and try to get that sense of urgency.
You're manipulating us.
Well, no, we're just kickstarting. We need to have...
That's what they all say, the manipulators.
We're trying to talk about it. We have to talk about these things. And without just saying 1.5 degree or 2 degrees, it's to me, I cannot really grasp what that means.
No, exactly, because in time, in 7 years or 2 good degrees, I wonder there is an extreme complexity to it, right? How will we even internalize that?
Yeah. But walking into a future, what if we just redesigned a fair, like a big a house being set into the future where you could actually experience a 2-degree warming event happening? That would be interesting. Perhaps a next project to showcase next year or something like that.
Yeah, a delegation from Brussels, from Washington, from Beijing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So yesterday we talked about signals and drivers. This movie was based on a few signals. I mentioned a few of them: CRISPR, bioreactors, and things like that. And then we have drivers. That's more long-term trends that we combine into scenarios. And you had an experience. Yesterday we had a question regarding what's your needed skills in 2035, and your immediate reaction was. What was that?
Yeah, it was to be able to be self-sufficient.
Yeah, and then 3 hours later, you wanted to rephrase that into...
I need to hone my parenting skills so my children can become self-sufficient and understand that they're living in a world that has a sliding scale. They need to be different, so I need to be a different parent.
Cool, interesting. And that's also part of the journey we make, and also what the journey you did yesterday, experiencing the day first of Sweden Innovation Days. So today we're going to, if you're not able to unlock that potential of the future, we should look back to look forward. And it's a really easy tool. I'm going to fast forward this tool lesson in just it's about having a timeline, looking back to see the developments in order to unlock your potential to look into the future. So for instance, if you look into today we're talking about sustainable cities, for instance. We could talk about waste management. That's a huge part of sustainable cities and societies. So if we look back like a few thousand years, we go back to Romans. They had cloaks and things like that. It sounds kind of advanced, being like 2,500 years ago, but it was actually really messy. We shouldn't go into details what kind of mess it was, but it was not healthy. It was actually dangerous. Okay, so fast forward to Sweden in the 60s. The other day I watched a movie about waste in the archipelago, being out sailing. And at first you think that, oh, good, they're going to tell us to take the garbage to a recycling station or something like that. No, they're telling us, put everything into a carton box, put stones in it, and drop it in the sea. Then it's like, that's a good thing. So that was actually...
Out of sight, out of mind.
Gone.
So do your timeline, look back, whatever topic you have, look back to see that, okay, so we really developed. And then you perhaps see that change is possible. And you can do this for yourself as well. Just put you into like age 0, and you can see that, okay, I really developed, I've progressed. What's next? And you could do this exercise for yourself.
Well, I was thinking about it, and I wanted to do an opposite exercise.
Okay.
How little has happened over time as a useful tool in the green transition. You look skeptical.
Yeah, no.
But I was
listening.
discussing with a conservative boomer who gave me the one-liner phrase regarding the transition: we don't want to move back to the Stone Ages, which is a one-liner that you hear sometimes about how the fossil-free economy will throw us back to the Stone Ages.
Yeah.
So I asked this boomer, how about if you live the life that you led 1990? And she was like, 1990 is fine. I had a lovely life in 1990. And then we could, with stats, look at the huge difference between 1990, 2000, 2010 to 2020 in terms of emission. But her mental mindset was she led a fantastic life 1990, and going back to that style would be zero infringement of her life.
Yeah.
Therefore, this transition might not be as bad as she thought.
That's interesting. Okay, so maybe that's another tool we should work with.
Ingrid, it's not as bad as you think, the progress that has happened.
So, Futures Thinking University, heavily inspired by Institute for the Future, which is something else I will talk about tomorrow, have introduced signals, driving forces, scenarios, and look back to look forward. Now I'm going to leave you with another question. We're going to ask you that the rest of this day, I would like you in the audience, as well as you guys, to think about. We're going dystopic today. We like that, right? Some need that kind of energy. Given the topics we covered today, what's the worst case scenario the world could look like in 2035?
Ooh.
So we're looking into food, sustainable cities, sustainable industry, AI. So given topics covered today, what's the worst case scenario in 2035? Share that in the Menti and no, in the Menti.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, actually, the chat is for the feelings for the baby builder, and we're using Menti because we're circling back to the Menti. I'll be back in a few hours when we're wrapping up, and we'll look at the Menti.
We will.
Yeah. So thanks.
Thank you, Joachim. Insightful, a bit of a stomach ache, but that's fine. We will see you later.
Yeah.
Because now it's time to check in with the parallel event in Lund, Sveriges Innovationsriksdag. Two exciting discussions, one on the Swedish food system, followed by an important discussion on climate contracts on an EU national and local level. Take it away, Lund.
This session will address the Swedish food system. How can we become more resilient and sustainable? And we are, of course, facing this topic from a perspective of a food crisis. And the food crisis, of course, we know is coming from the Ukraine, the Russian invasion and the war that has threatened and sort of lifted this perspective very strongly. We will talk about this in the first section of this session, and the next section of the session will be about blue foods, a key to sustainable food in the future. We know that seafood can make a substantial contribution to our future food supply, and we will dig, or fish, a bit deeper on this topic in the second half. Blue Food is the seafood center that brings together research, and we have a representative from this section, and talk about diversity of Swedish actors to build the conditions for Swedish production of the seafood for the future. But we start by taking an overview of Sweden's food preparedness. We know that we do not have enough food production in our country, and we need to strengthen this, and we need this perspective to be lifted here in this session. So it's my pleasure to introduce Ingrid Petersson. She is with us digitally here. She is the inquiry chair of two Swedish inquiries, the inquiry on enhanced food security and the inquiry on research and innovation funding. So for the last 9 years, between 2013 and 2022, she has been the Director General for Formas, as you might know, the Swedish Research Council for Sustainable Development. So I hand over to Ingrid Petersson and hope she will be joining us here. There she is. Hello, Ingrid. You have our full attention.
Thank you very much. The modern food system is truly global. We trade both with inputs, raw materials such as bread, grain, and prepared food. During the last years, however, there have been major disturbances in the trade due to COVID and lockdowns, Russia's armed attack on Ukraine, and natural disasters such as droughts and floods. Trade has also been affected by political measures such as export restrictions or embargoes. The most vulnerable countries with high dependencies on importation are usually hit the hardest when there is a shortage or an increase in prices. In many countries like Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Mali, Niger, Sudan, Syria, and Venezuela, among others, there are ongoing hunger catastrophes which have been aggravated with the war in Ukraine. The Swedish food preparedness system, where we also had stocks, was disassembled in the late 90s. At that time, the Cold War was over and Russia was not seen as a threat. Sweden joined the European Union with a single market, free movements, and a common agricultural policy. Many people envisaged a peaceful future. Sweden's civil defense planning, including food preparedness, was resumed shortly after Russia annexed the Crimean Peninsula in 2014. The last years, where the modern society's vulnerabilities have been apparent, have put the civil defense high on the political agenda. In the end of April 2022, the government decided on terms of reference for an inquiry, which I'm chairing, on food preparedness. The inquiry shall report its findings the last of November this year. Agriculture is dependent on many inputs: electricity, fuel, fertilizers, plant protection products, and pharmaceuticals for animals. The raw material is processed in the food industry with many dependencies. The prepared food is then distributed to the grocery stores, restaurants, and public meals where it's sold or provided to the population. The working hypothesis in the inquiry at present, and I would say at present because we're not ready, is that the future food preparedness should build on three blocks. First, trade should, as far as possible, be maintained. Second, conditions for relevant domestic production should be reinforced. And third, stocking of essential inputs and raw materials should be considered. The Swedish food system is vulnerable as we have no domestic production of fertilizers, making us heavily dependent on importation. There are, however, several initiatives to make fertilizers from new raw materials and with new methods. These initiatives and innovations are very welcome from a food preparedness perspective. The same goes for fossil-free fuel, which could be produced also when trade is limited or blocked. I see great potential in reinforced plant breeding. We need plants that need less fertilizers and plant protection products, but we also need plants that have the essential nutrients and can thrive in a changing climate. The food system of today is heavily digitalized, which makes us very dependent on electricity, satellites, and internet connection. When functioning, it makes the system less labor-intensive and more efficient. The system has, however, to be able to produce food in circumstances when, for example, internet is not functioning. Restructured production and alternative ways of operating will be important going forward. Many of the machines and instruments used in the food system are made abroad, from where spare parts also ordered just in time. In times of trade disruptions, this will cause problem, and alternative ways of producing spare parts might have to be found. Could additive manufacturing, 3D printing be an option? Concerning food preparedness, agriculture has been a focus, giving less attention to the blue economy. We must further explore this possibility, and I look forward to listening to the next speakers. Last but not least, food doesn't only have to be available, it also has to be safe. Packaging is here essential, and I think there is still room for new packaging that are environmentally friendly, robust, and keep the food fresh and safe for a long time. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Ingrid Petersson. You will be back for a conversation after the next presentation. We will now dig deeper into, or fish deeper into, the blue food section here. And it's my pleasure to introduce Fredrik Gröndahl. He is Associate Professor and Manager of the Blue Food Center at KTH. And the center is financed by the Swedish Research Council, Formas, and the region of Västra Götaland. And it also has academic partners, I'm sure you're going to talk about this, and around 70 external partners in the production of food from both the oceans and from freshwater systems. So you have our full attention, Fredrik.
Thank you very much. And yep, we will see here. Oh, did it start? Yeah. Okay, I will take you into the blue revolution, talk a little about the sea and the importance of the sea for the food production in Sweden and in the world, I would say. And the first thing you have to be observant of is our planet is blue. 71% of our planet is a blue planet. 29% is land. And on land we have glaciers and deserts, and they are very stressed, the ecosystems on land. And we are now 8 billion people on the planet, and we will soon be 11 billion people in just a couple of years. So the things are under pressure, and we are suffering from a lot of environmental problems. The sea is actually taking care about 50% of the carbon dioxide that is released. It produces 50% of the oxygen that we have on the planet. It has a huge potential to feed us if we do it in a sustainable way and not overfish it in a voracious way that we have done earlier. So this is what I'm going to talk about. And we are now in a transition. We need to leave this oil-based, the fossil-based industry, and we have to have a new world that is bio-based. Otherwise, we will not survive on this planet. And I would say that without the sea and taking the sea into consideration, we will not have a sustainable future. So we need to consider what we could do in the sea. Everybody is working with the forest. We want to do so much with the forest. And forest, everybody wants the Swedish forest. But the Swedish forest will not be enough. And Sweden is one of the few countries in the world that have very much forest. We also need to think about other possibilities to get bio-based material. And then, of course, we need to look into the oceans where we have the forest of the sea, the big kelp beds. And this is just brown algae here from the Atlantic. And here is one possibility. They are fast growing and they could support us with food and feed, materials, energy, etc. So there is a huge potential to use this algae biomass. So now I will present the Blue Food Center for Future Seafood. This is an initiative that is a cluster in the food system. We have 8 academic partners, and what we are doing here is to make Sweden more independent on food production from the sea. Now we are important most of the things that we are eating here. We also want to get a healthy seafood that we could also lower the cost for the seafood and get it out to elderly people, to daycares and so on, to our school children to eat more, because this is also very healthy food, but now it's a luxury segment. In Sweden, we are fishing 250,000 tons of fish we are taking up, but only 40,000 of these tons are going for human consumption. The rest is used for biogas production, feeding minks, or just being transformed to a fish meal for salmon in Norway. It's a huge waste of valuable protein, and we want us to use the fish we are taking up in a better way. So what is the Blue Food Center? It's something fantastic. We got this center. It's located at KTH, but there is a number of academic partners here. Uppsala, SLU, RISE, KTH, IVL, Gothenburg University, Chalmers, and a colleague that was supposed to be here with me today from Innovatum that is coordinating a lot of the contacts with the industry. But when we started this was like an underdog in the Swedish food industry. And then suddenly everybody wanted to be in the Blue Food Center because it has been a neglected part of our food system. And we have now 70 companies that are in the Blue Food Center. And we are working with the whole value chain here, from the primary production with a lot of new innovative companies that do different types of seafood, like algae or sea squirts or mussel or oysters. Then we have the big process industry with us, like Orca, Marinor, Leroy, etc., that is processing food. And then the end of it, where the food is sold at ICA, Coop, etc. So we have the whole value chain. And we want to do innovation in all these steps. And it could be many ways. We could have, how could digitalization be used in aquaculture, for example? We do robot developments at KTH to do inspection robots for future aquaculture out in the ocean, etc. But it could also be to collaborate with restaurants and invent just delicious food that could be as much as an innovation as an Apple Watch, I would say. A good dish is better. So let's have a look here. Well, we need to also have a protein shift where we go from brown proteins for cows and pigs, etc., into the green proteins and the blue proteins to get healthy food to feed the coming 11 billion people that will be here about 2050. One way is, of course, to eat insects, and that will be part of the food system in the future. Or you could look at the algae. This is from Korea, and there are some nice algae dishes that could be inspired. And in many places where you eat a lot of seafood, you also have blue zones where you get old, in Okinawa, for example. So that's also something to think about, to eat algae. And maybe that is better than to have the iWatch checking our system. Eat algae instead. You live longer. So anyway, we are trying or developing here, and something that we have been doing together here in this collaboration is to start seaweed farming in Sweden, and this has been actually a success. We cultivate the seaweeds on rope in our very nutritional waters that we have on the Swedish west coast. We don't need to irrigate it, we don't need to feed it, because they are living on the nutrients that are available in the water. This also works fine with the mussels and oysters, so it's a fantastic thing that is very sustainable to do, actually, and it could even help the ecosystem to cultivate these algae. This is just to show you how one of these seaweed farms are looking from above. And this is a 2-hectare research farm that we had when we started this 2014. No one had done it in Sweden. Now, 8 years later, there is a number of companies evolving around this in the food tech area using algae for different things. This is just to show you a little bit of the innovation, what you could use algae for. And here is, you could know, sausages or hamburgers, or you could make alcohol. That is always very nice. Gin and so on. Or you could also use it for material, textiles, plastic cups, etc. So that is the fantastic with this biomass, that it could be used for so many different things. Yeah, and this is just now, unfortunately this one is in Swedish, but this is a algae-baked fish, gös. And gös is an old fish. We were eating a lot of other type of fish before, and we are not only working with things from the sea, we are also working with things from lakes. So we want to do hamburgers of braxen and gös and see if we could revitalize these old fish species that we used to eat. This is actually on the Nobel dinner, this last Nobel dinner. They had algae from one of the spin-off companies from the research from KTH and Gothenburg University. So new food from the sea will soon be on everyone's table. And as much as we are working with digitalization, artificial intelligence, in the robotics, etc., in the food system, we're also working with inventing new exciting dishes that is good also for maybe a Western taste or a Swedish taste, not just Asian. So here is, you could eat starfish, of course, but there is this algae burger and a herring burger there. So I want to end there. Thank you, Formas, for financing this, hopefully for 8 years. And more information you could read there, bluefood.se and seafarm.se. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fredrik. We need to move on in the program, no question, unfortunately. But thank you very much for a great presentation. And thank you, Ingrid. We couldn't come back to you for a question, but thank you for your strong presentation of the National Food Strategy here. So now, climate contract. In order for us to reach a safe landing zone, we need collaboration. We know this by now. And the climate contract is, of course, a very, very interesting concept that requires collaboration between citizens, politicians, companies, academia, all sectors of society. And we will now talk about what this entails and from the different levels. And we'll start by introducing the EU perspective. We have as a keynote speaker, a short keynote in this session, Patrick Child. He is currently the Deputy Director General in the DG Environment at the European Commission, with a particular responsibility for the EU's zero pollution strategy, chemicals legislation, urban agenda, research and innovation for environment, and also communication. He's also the mission manager for the Climate Neutral and Smart Cities mission that we will talk about in this session, which aims to reach 100 climate neutral cities by 2030. So I hand over to Patrick Child. He is joining us via the digital link here. Please give him a warm hand that he hears all the way to Brussels.
Katarina, thank you very much indeed. I'm very, very happy to have this opportunity to participate in this important event. And I'm really sorry that I can't be there in person. I was in Sweden just a few weeks ago and was able to connect with many of the participants in our sort of initiatives around cities. So it's a real pleasure for me to be able to address you today because much of the inspiration that has gone to the creation of the European Union Cities Mission, the mission that we have to support 100 cities across the European Union to become climate neutral by 2030. Much of the inspiration has come from the excellent work that has been done in Sweden. So just a few words of introduction on what we're trying to achieve through the Cities Mission. I mean, as we know, cities have a vital role to play in our collective efforts to address the climate emergency that we're facing and contribute to the objectives of the European Green Deal. And as mission manager for the Cities Mission, as I travel around the European Union, meeting representatives of cities in all member states, it's really an inspiration to see the sort of determination and creativity that is coming at a local level. And in particular, the work that is now going around what we call the Climate City Contracts, the sort of overall sort of blueprint of how cities are going to achieve the climate neutrality, detailed action plan on what that will mean in practice, and crucially with a new dimension, a specific investment strategy, which will show how cities committed to the objective of the mission will achieve this very, very ambitious goal, a goal which we will bring support at the European level, in particular through the work of our Net Zero Cities Mission platform, a sort of consortium of organizations committed to greening in cities, which is working with us and working with the cities with a network of city advisors. So we're very much hoping that the first cities, including, I guess, some from Sweden, given your pioneering work in this area, will be able to present to us the first batch of climate city contracts already in the middle of next month. And we're working hard through the platform to support the cities in their work, not just with the advisors, but also with some funding. And very happy that Malmö, Uppsala and Umeå are among the cities that were selected in a first call for sort of pilot support that we have organized through the Net Zero Cities platform. And we're also in future going to have other initiatives, more pilot action, but also a twinning program. And I just want to highlight in this introductory words also the opportunity to for you all to participate in an annual conference of the mayors of all the cities in our mission, also all 100 in the EU and the 12 associated countries, which will be in Brussels on the 26th and the 27th of June. And just to set the scene for our discussion, three quick messages. Firstly, we see the city's mission as an initiative that is able to join up different actors in different ways that probably wouldn't happen in the absence of the mission, and to create synergies between different dimensions of your work and a really systemic approach. So we take a cross-sectoral, demand-led approach, boosting synergies between different initiatives, but also drawing inspiration from the real needs of the cities in the mission. We have a very high level of ambition, just a very short time to achieve climate neutrality by 2030, but also, I believe, a realistic and programmatic approach so that we don't duplicate the work under other initiatives, but rather federate the different activities that are happening at European level, at national level, and in the cities themselves. So we are joining up as much as we can with other initiatives like the Covenant Affairs, the European Green Capital Award, Green Leaf, Smart Cities Marketplace, and many other activities. And we're also working, and I guess this is at a more practical level, to have synergies between our different funding programs. I was in Torino, Turin in Italy at the end of last week to see the announcement by our commissioner responsible for regional policy, Mrs. Ferreira, who for the first time has announced an upcoming call for proposals under the Urban Innovative Action with explicit recognition of the value of being in the city's mission for funding under that, building on similar connections that we have through the Transport Infrastructure Programme under Connecting Europe Facility and our Life Environment Strategic Integration Projects. So we really want to ensure that different forms of EU funding come together and support the work of cities in the city's mission. Success, though, and this is my second message, will also depend crucially on cooperation with national and regional level and other stakeholders. We are really working hard to encourage member state national governments to bring their support to the work that the cities in the mission are doing, because we think that this is a key dimension of success. Here again, I think that the experience in Sweden is particularly positive, and I'm looking forward to the intervention a little bit later on of our colleague Olga from Viable Cities, who is a key partner in what we call our capacities program, which is a dedicated funding stream to support member states in developing and setting up national networks to connect national, regional and local authorities together in support of the cities in the mission. We're also really encouraging cities to engage from the very start, not only with their citizens, where they have a lot of experience and I think good track record, but also other key actors in local communities, whether that's the business community, public utilities, the local sort of transport, education system, because the earlier we get all of the actors involved, the more ownership we will build around the objectives in the Climate City contracts. And I think that in particular engagement with private sector, a big part of the investment for climate neutrality will have to come in the end from the private sector. And therefore, the more that businesses, potential investors, can be part of the design of the climate neutral plans that we're developing, the better chances we'll have of bringing those investments on stream very quickly. And as I say, we particularly highlight and welcome the impressive experience and track record of Swedish cities in this sort of multi-dimensional stakeholder engagement, and it's certainly lessons that I'm taking around to other cities in the European Union as I support the work of the mission. Finally, just perhaps another word, and my third message around the importance of the Climate City contracts, which we are developing at a European level, very much building on the work that we've been doing through Swedish cities under the Viable Cities initiative. We know that the Climate City contracts are challenging, complex, and time-consuming, and that we have very high expectations. We also know that we need to be realistic and pragmatic in the present challenging geopolitical situation with high energy prices, the war in Ukraine, and inflationary pressures. But I think it is very important that we nevertheless aim for a very high level of ambition. Once we have the climate city contracts, we plan to have a sort of review process, after which we will sort of give you a vote of confidence, a sort of mission label, which we believe will then provide a sort of focus and sort of source of inspiration for different funding streams. In particular, we hope clarity about your future plans, which will therefore give a basis for private sector investment as well as funding from European and national sources. So, really delighted to be able to be part of this conversation. I firmly believe that the transition to climate neutral and sustainable cities must be driven by an unprecedented mobilization of stakeholders at all levels. We from the European Commission will do all we can to foster the work and to support you in your efforts. And I really look forward to seeing many representatives of Swedish cities alongside others at this important conference that we will be holding, as I mentioned, at the end of June, and to see you again as I travel around during the Swedish presidency and beyond. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Patrick Child. And now to shed some light from the national and the Swedish national, and of course also the regional and the local level, we have three speakers. And I'd like to introduce up on stage Anders Almgren, Mayor of Lund. Please give him a warm hand. And we also have with us Anna Ledin, Professor, PhD, and Director of the Environmental Administration at the City of Gothenburg. A warm hand to Anna. And with us via the magic of Zoom, we have Olga Kordas, Program Director, Viable Cities, and also Associate Professor, KTH. She should be joining us here on the screen. Let's start. Yes, there you are. Hello, Olga. Great to see you. So, Olga, Sweden and Viable Cities pioneered the development and the implementation of Climate City Contract as a governance innovation. So what motivated you, Olga, to work on the National Climate City Contract in Sweden, please?
Yes, thank you. Yes, so Viable Cities, we are a strategic innovation program of Sweden, and our mission is climate neutral cities by 2030 with a good life for all within planetary boundaries, very much in line with the European mission that Patrick referred to. And then we're working in Sweden with 23 cities representing 40% of Sweden's population, and this is to achieve working with the mission and with cities. We understood very soon that we need to have a new governance innovation, new governance tool to connect and align climate policy and climate action on different levels, on the local level, on the national level, and on the European level. And we need to have stakeholder mobilization on all these levels. And that's why we created Climate City Contract as this delivery mechanism of national climate policy to the local level and as a tool for mobilization for climate action. So in Sweden, Climate City Contract is signed by mayors of cities. It's signed also by the Director Generals of 6 national public agencies and also by Viable Cities. So mayors and cities, they state their commitments to achieve climate neutrality by 2030, also action plans, so how to reach there, and also about climate investment. Who should invest and how should we invest into climate transition? At the same time, the national level agencies, they commit to support cities transition with the help of better regulation, creating the portfolio of innovations and also coordinated fundings. And then Viable Cities is responsible for orchestration. What we could achieve so far is to create those arenas of collaboration on the local level, inside municipalities, different departments of municipalities, between municipalities and their local partners, and also between different national agencies and between cities and the national agencies. And then what we found out is that Climate City Contract could be this powerful tool, but all these arenas need to be strengthened even more.
Thank you, Olga.
Yeah.
Thank you all. We need to move on to the representatives here on stage. Thank you so much. Anna and Anders, why is it so difficult to make climate transition happen from your perspective in the local context? Gothenburg and Lund. Who would like to start?
Yeah, I would like to start. I think that the basics in this is actually what we heard from the healthcare systems an hour ago, that these systems, the sisters, are built or constructed, how you say it, to be extremely robust. We are going to deliver on everyday basis. Schools, children care, water, wastewater supply, etc. We are built to be very, very robust and deliver on that basis. Now we are going to make a major transition into a climate neutral city. That means that we have to think totally differently. And we really need to find a way, which is also what Olga mentioned, another governance system to do this. We need to work on a really true complex challenge. We are used to work on complicated challenges. A complicated challenge, we can figure out how to do it. We can write a recipe. You do it like this and this and this. But a complex problem, you have to try something, test it, learn, fail, try again. And we have really to collaborate on this.
Because I can imagine doing this from different cities' perspectives. You can share the failures and, of course, also the successes. So from the Lund perspective, I'm looking at the watch. We unfortunately only have 3 minutes and 22 seconds left, so I'm trying to speed up here a bit. I'm sorry. So Anders, Lund has worked very extensively on climate action. So from this perspective, what can you share? What are the learnings so far? What are you really looking forward to in this climate cities mission?
I think I think the key is to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time.
Not easy.
You know, we need to address the healthcare. We need to keep the schools up and running and all the other stuff that we do on a daily basis, and while doing it in a climate neutral way. So I think we had to. The success is to add that perspective in everything you do. And as a Swedish city, you know, we are the environmental authority, we are the planning authority, we own a lot of houses, and we own a lot of transportation. And if you address the climate issues in every aspect as a city, that is key factor. And I think it's a vast part of our success, and also Gothenburg and the other front runners in Sweden, that you address the climate issue in your everyday work in the other aspects.
So how about, this is a question for all of you, how about the role of innovation here? Because this is what we're all here to talk about, right? How about the role of innovation in this transition?
For me, I think that the climate contract as a concept, that's truly innovation in how to run governance in the city. The climate contract is aiming at making a true contract between the cities and the European Commission, and in the Swedish case also by the authorities in Sweden. And this is a contract where we promise to do something in the cities. We promise to do this. We are going to go, as Anders is saying, putting this into everything we are doing. But the government and the EU has also to give us a promise to support us in this, help us with financing, as Patrick was talking about, but also to help us regarding regulations, new knowledge. We need to work together with the industry. We need to work together with academia and so on. And this is true innovation, to just go on this road, I would say.
Anders, we're here at IDEA on innovation in terms of companies. What can you say from the Lund perspective? We talked about procurement.
Yes, of course, but I think from an international perspective, but especially from a Swedish perspective, there is no such things as a copyright between cities. So I think we should stress innovation, and everybody should innovate something in the field of climate neutrality. But we need to focus on upscaling. So I would copy the best examples from Gothenburg, and you copy the best from our city, and vice versa. And then we get going, because every city can't innovate everything from zero. Then we won't get there by 2030. So we need to innovate, but we need to copy and scale up, and that's what we can do together, especially in an international context.
Excellent. And your good examples will be monitored by researchers like Olga. Sorry, I couldn't get back to you for more input, but the time constraints forbids me for that. And also, of course, Patrick at the Commission will be taking note of what we're doing in Lund and in Gothenburg. So we're all in this together. And of course, all you innovators here, if you have great ideas that pertain to the climate transition, bring them on. Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you very much, Anders. And thank you very much, Olga and Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lund, for that. Insightful. We're now moving on and to talk about a word that we've heard a few times today, reindustrialization. And broadly speaking, it's a new phase for Swedish industry as we innovate and rethink old polluting and greenhouse gas emitting waste to build back better within our planetary boundaries, to create jobs, welfare, wealth, and not the least, hope. Let's talk about northern Sweden, the tech wonder. And to set the scene, we have a film. Please roll the tape.
We see a beginning of the green industrial revolution. I'm really surprised myself, but now we see it happen. We talk about green, fossil-free iron, fossil-free steel, and we have also a battery factory. So
why are we talking so much about Norrbotten and Västerbotten? There are happening good things, in other places of the world as well. And I think, yes, it is, but not to this scale that we see in Sweden right now.
So that is sort of a big story for the whole world, that we can change our society. And I think we're now changing our mindset in Sweden and in Europe to see how these fossil-free products could be part of developing a modern country. So I think now we increase our welfare by being fossil-free. It's not a burden, it's a possibility.
Right now, North Sweden is like the center of many transformations of many industry sectors. I mean, North Sweden has always been good at forestry, mining, energy, and also space. And right now, all these industry sectors are transforming. So we have everything from clean energy providing Northvolt battery factory in Skellefteå. We have Markbygden in Piteå providing clean wind power energy. We have the efforts on hybrid and H2 green steel in Boden and Luleå, transforming the steel industry. To Esrange, providing a satellite launch site for all of Europe. So lots of exciting things are happening in North Sweden right now.
I would also say that they really represent groundbreaking research that drives the green transition that we talk about so much, and at the same time really make sure that Sweden and Swedish companies continue to be very competitive when we look at the global market. We can make new products, we can make new services, and we can really make sure that they are sustainable and contribute to a better world for us and also for the next generation.
But now we need a lot of people moving in, and we see that we can transform not only the industry but also the societies up north and create a very attractive region in Europe. Take the city of Skellefteå as an example. The battery factory is up and running now, and they are employing a lot of people already now, and they will need like 5,000 in the coming years. So we need to do this now, and I think it's very important that we all feel the sense of urgency, because we have not only a lack of competence, we also have a lack of people in the northern part of Sweden.
The biggest opportunities are the same as the biggest challenges, so we need to keep up on growing the cities, the infrastructure, housing, and also to provide a positive image outside that makes families want to come here and live and work here.
So how we can work together, state and the companies. Now they have a big choir of industrial leaders that want to step up and make it much faster.
I think if we succeed with Skellefteå, this could be something that we can learn from when we move forward into transforming the society and the industry into a sustainable future.
Well, I don't know how you feel, but I got goosebumps. And as you can see, they are doing it. They are rethinking hard-to-abate industries. They're investing in massive projects, collaborating across public and private, entrepreneurs and backed by government and substantial private capital, in conjunction with infrastructure to build houses, schools, roads. Is it easy? I guess not. Is it a straight line? I'm guessing again, nope. They are learning as they go along, and let's hear how they tackle challenges as they arise, and hopefully celebrating milestones together. So let's talk about this, and I'd like to welcome my panel. Anna-Karin Ramsköld, Vice President Corporate Sustainability at Vattenfall. Ella Jonsson joining us via link, Innovation Manager Swedish Lapland Visitors Board. And Helena Bjäregård, you are State Architect at Boverket, the National Agency for Housing, Building and Planning. Ella, you are in the north. Let's start with you. What's going on in northern Sweden right now? Set the scene for us.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be here today. Well, as you saw in the movie that we just watched, lots of things are going on. So it's not something that we are planning for. It's actually happening right now. So huge investments are underway. And we need to do a lot of things. And in my work as an innovation manager for the big project that is called the North Sweden Green Deal, the part that handles attraction is what I work with. And my main target group is the 14 municipalities in the northernmost part of Sweden. You know, we are introducing new methods, new innovation methods, new ways of working that is completely new for the public sector in order to meet the huge demands that now are sort of in focus for the municipalities. So we have been doing a lot of prototypes, a lot of user tests, always with the end user, the lifestyle migrant in focus. So basically you can say that the whole of our region is currently a giant innovation arena where we are, as you said, just learning as we go along, because we need to do things differently, because we need to grow with as much as 100,000 new inhabitants.
We were speaking to Brussels yesterday, and Breakthrough Energy was saying that Sweden should think about the Nordics, and the Nordics should think about Europe, and Europe should think about the transatlantic. And now we're narrowing down to the Nordic of the northern part of Sweden. Talk to me about that dance. How do we do regional and national and collaborations?
Well, I mean, I think that is, we need to collaborate a lot more. Also internally in our region, we have learned during this year that we need to talk a lot more to each other to understand the bigger picture. And I think also we were talking about the sense of urgency. We cannot do this big transition on our own. We need support from the national leadership, and we need support from the EU arena as well. So we need to do this together, because things that is happening here in the north right now is actually in the forefront globally. So we are doing things that will help the globe to work better with the industry in the future.
So if I hear you correctly, you can do both. You can both be very regional as well as a global outlook.
Yes, absolutely. And I think a global outlook is definitely what we need to use in this transition that we are doing. And we are looking a lot into that. And we think that more part of the new inhabitants here in our region will come from other countries. And we see that already with the plant, the battery factory in Skellefteå, and we see that in Boden with the H2 Green Steel. And we expect that also at LKAB when they move along with their new big project. So, and next week we are going to the Netherlands on one of the biggest immigrant fairs in Europe to present this region for the first time all together. And that is also a prototype. We are trying to, you know, presenting a new concept, presenting new possibilities, and we look forward to see what we get in return. And we have already a lot of positive indicators that people are really interested in actually moving here.
Well, let's dive into that in a little bit. I hope we have enough time. I'd like to introduce the panel that's here in the studio with us today. Helena, thank you for coming. What's your perspective and your angle at the Nordic wonder?
I'm the state architect working at the National Agency for Housing, Building and Planning, but I'm also the chair of the Council for Sustainable Cities. And our commission from the government, 12 state agencies working together in this council, is to support especially the citizen communities in the northern part of Sweden. And what does that have to do with innovation, one might think? But I can see that transforming the citizen communities, that's really in the heart of innovation. We have, you know, transport systems, places to live. You mentioned schools, hospitals. We saw in the movie that a lot of people are going to move to northern Sweden, and we need attractive living environments to make them want to move there. And they're very conscious about that this is a sustainable environment also. So I see that every innovation that we do will take place in a city and community. And also citizen communities are about people moving to northern Sweden in this case, people wanting attractive, sustainable, inclusive living environments. And that is what we are supporting the citizen communities with in northern Sweden.
I'm getting flashbacks from the beautiful 90s movie with Kevin Costner, Build It and They Will Come. Talk to me about the timeline. Do you build in preparation for, or do you wait for people to come and you build along the way? How does the practicalities of this work?
Always when you work with city planning, building cities, you work on the whole timeline at all levels at the same time. You have an existing city or a living environment in the countryside where people live, and you need to transform this. You need to, you know, develop this environment in some way. And in this case, we need to develop it so it's attractive, so it will attract 100,000 people actually to move there and to stay there.
So you're hoping for build it and they will come. Annika, you are, there's no coincidence that you're here with us today, because obviously electricity and energy in that infrastructure is a key part of this transition specifically, but also if we take the learnings from this and extrapolate that to other countries. Tell us about your view.
Well, it's like you said, I mean, it's fantastic, all these new things that are happening, the innovation up north, but it will require a lot of electricity. And so far, northern Sweden have really been an exporter, talking about sort of how do we regionally then support the rest of Sweden also with electricity, and maybe even export it externally to other countries. Now, this electricity will be needed in the north for the battery factories, for the manufacturing of fossil-free steel and so forth. And so the electricity that is produced in the northern part of Sweden will be used there. So we will not be able to really export to the rest of Sweden or the rest of the world. And on top of that, we will need so much more that it's not even enough with what we have there. We also need even more. So this electrification that will be needed will help us to tackle the climate challenges. It will help us to get new job opportunities, also to create very interesting environment, both when it comes for job opportunities and so forth. But it will not go unnoticed. So somehow we will see a lot of more onshore wind farms, offshore wind farms. Maybe if we look way into the future, maybe even small nuclear reactors.
And for those who haven't dived into the exact plan, how do you talk about the next year, 18 months, 5 years, 10 years in terms of electricity? How does it communicate it? How do you co-create? Because this topic today is not only about what's actually going on in northern Sweden, but also the collaborative element of making that happen.
Exactly, and I think the new way that we, or era that we're moving into will, like you said, require collaboration. Because if now the prerequisite for LKAB to open up even more mines and for SSAB to produce the fossil-free steel or Northvolt to get access to it has to be planned while we at the same time secure the electricity, secure the infrastructure. You talked about securing the competence that is needed. And all of that means that we need to collaborate, we need to have joint timelines, we need to have very clear targets. And I think we have a very good example of how it works to collaborate with the project Hybrid, the joint venture between SSAB, LKAB and Vattenfall, where we really set a joint target. We wanted to create fossil-free value chains for steel and then set a joint time plan. But when it comes now to build out, we already have, like I said, access of electricity in the northern part. We are constantly building new things. So last summer we had the inauguration of Blockliden Fäbodberget, a large onshore wind farm. So things are happening, but we need to plan also, like you said, when it comes to building cities, we need to have the long-term view, which is that we need to double the capacity of electricity in Sweden in order to tackle this.
Not a small task.
Not a small task, but you need to do. But what I think is sometimes in the debate, I have a feeling that everyone feels, ooh, it's all going to come at the same time. But of course, this is going to be a gradual change, meaning that we can jointly take the steps and develop and evolve all the different areas in parallel.
And what does the Swedish Energy Agency say about this?
It's a very good question. I think it's very interesting to hear you talk about the possibilities here. And I think as an agency, first of all, we do have a lot of research and innovation programs that we have a lot of open calls. We do have regional programs where we can share our knowledge, where we have groups, where we trying to facilitate the exchange of knowledge between partners. And I think it's very interesting every time that we have an open call for research or innovation project, we actually get to hear your voices, we get to hear your suggestions, and we get to involve you and ourselves in a dialogue with actors who are actually out there making the difference.
So trying to read between the lines, the two main, as our minister yesterday told us, not challenges but possibilities are the electrification and electricity and the renewables as well as more energy, electricity, and the other is talent and people. Ella, if we start with you, what's your take on how to attract 100,000 people, the right people, and to let's address the elephant in the room. It's cold in northern Sweden. Like, how does that play into this?
Yes, it is. But I mean, I work for Swedish Lapland Visitors Board. We have the opportunity to work with this North Sweden Green Deal because we have been working with international marketing for this region for more than 20 years, and we have done it very successfully. And we know that an attractive destination for traveling also attracts lifestyle migration, and that is what we are working on now. So many people that look to move to this region, they love our lifestyle, they love our nature, they love the possibilities with also nice challenges and fantastic opportunities if you are interested to actually work for a better future with all the sustainable actions that are taking place here in the industry. So it's a combination of many different things that attract people to actually move their focus from, for instance, living in a very crowded big city somewhere in Europe to actually see, but we cannot only go here for vacation, we can actually move here. And we have families that do that already. And many municipalities have had very successful moving in results already. Just during the last year. So that's really interesting to see. But of course, I mean, we need to be even more focused to have our common sort of offer and to make it as clear as possible. And I think that is what we are going to focus on next week when we go to this big fair in the Netherlands.
Thank you. We unfortunately don't have that much time. There, one last topic that I would like to talk about is conflicting goals. Helena, you raised your hand. You didn't know the question, but what type of regional conflicting goals do we need to address and need to soberly look at?
We have a lot of conflicting goals, and almost all conflicting goals are about land use. So we need to think wise about land use and do real good planning to do that. And we need to invite people to think and do together, and place-making projects and so on, and do while we think. For example, together with the Energy Agency and Vinnova and Formas, we had the Visions in the North. That was an open call where we invited multidisciplinary teams of culture and creativity and engineers and so on to think and do together with the citizen communities in northern part of Sweden. And we're going to continue to do this in a second phase. So we need to do that. We need to invent, we need to innovate, we need to plan, we need to do at the same time as we think, for example, as we have done in Visions in the North.
And so that entails mitigating conflicting goals with collaboration, conversation, lateral. Final words?
No, but I think there are, like you said, a lot of conflicting goals, but the only way to solve them is that we really sit around the same table. And we all know that we cannot meet all the different demands. So it's going to be sort of a way of some interests need to stand back in some areas and others need to get more space. And that's just the way we need to have it. So, and I think coming back to what I said earlier, this transition is not going to go unnoticed. And it means that for the better cause, we know that the climate and the planet is burning, so we need to do something about it. And then it's more a matter of how do we do it in the best possible way, where we see most opportunities and then have negative impact on as few as possible. But we can only find it jointly, and we need a joint plan for that.
Joint plan, sense of urgency, and we need 100,000 people to move to the north that both love nature as well as can contribute to the green transition in terms of engineers and others. Fine. Thank you. Well, thank you. And it's time to get a sneak peek into the innovating in the making. You might remember from last year, we have a parallel event. Ignite Sweden is masterminding a massive matchmaking between startups and a variety of useful corporates. So over the course of these 3 days, 220 participating startups and scale-ups, 58 corporates from 10 countries, 357 matchmaking meetings. And we will meet a handful, the first two right now. So I'd like to welcome ECG Go, presented by founder Orly Glick. Please.
Hello. When it comes to your sustainability information, you want the most trustworthy solutions. You want the most adaptable, the most updated, the smartest, the sleekest, and the most important, the most reliable systems. My name is Orly Glick, and I'm the CEO and the founder of ESG Go. Sustainability and ESG are now on every company's strategic agenda, and even the stock price is shown now to be related to ESG. ESG Go is a SaaS software powered by AI and a deep tech data engine, providing different features such as ESG data collection, standardizing and normalizing data across any ESG framework, as there are so many frameworks, CO2 emissions analysis or full ESG analysis by business unit, by geography, by product line, benchmarking against your competition ESG, gap analysis, supplier ESG, and improving your ESG posture and score. This is a data problem, and ESG Go's data plus sustainability plus security teams makes ESG your reliable and your powerful one-stop shop for all of your sustainability and ESG needs.
Smorgasbord of offerings. What is the biggest challenge companies, your potential clients, are facing when they start monitoring their ESG?
The biggest problem is the data problem. The data is sitting in many different places in the organization. It's in the HR, in procurement, in legal, in finance, in operations. And then if you have different departments and in different countries, you have many different units of measurement. You have the imperial system, you have the metric system. You're measuring the data on an annual basis, on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis. So it is what we call a data spaghetti. And then you have the different frameworks. You have the SDGs, the GRI, the SASB, all of these alphabet soup. And so to standardize each and every one is a really, really big problem. And we're really good at this.
Well, thank you for organizing our spaghetti for us. And moving on to the next startup that's been part of the matchmaking, I'd like to welcome PFAL Plasmonics, presented by Per. Per, tell us what you're doing.
Okay, cool. Thanks for having me. Well, we are a deep tech startup, science-based startup out of Ångström Lab at Uppsala University, sort of a template, if you like, of science-based startups spinning out of the research that's done by very much international researchers in Sweden. We work with nanoparticles, and we have developed a transparent solar cell, which is the next generation of solar cells that can be placed everywhere, and low power devices. So our main value proposition, if you like, is to replace batteries. There are 22 billion electronic devices with batteries in the world today, and those batteries only produce a tenth of what they cost to produce. So of course it's a great value proposition, and we are happy to be a part of the energy transition.
And we are in the midst of an energy crisis. How has that affected your company and the journey that you're on?
Well, it's a customer demand issue. People corporations are trying desperately to find new ways to produce energy closer to where it's consumed and become more sustainable. So we see it as a pull from the market. That's the major thing for us.
Thank you, and hopefully the matchmaking has been useful. Thank you for sharing your journeys and giving us hope on solutions ahead. And I would like to now hand over to our studio in Lund, because as we mentioned yesterday, we have the privilege of accessing Sweden's Innovation Riksdag and the powerful discussions that go on there. See you later.
Welcome back, all of you, and hi, Stockholm and the world, because I know there are lots of people watching this in other countries. This session, we will talk about the transport sector. In Sweden, we have very ambitious goals. By 2030, we are to be reducing 70% of our emissions based on what we used to emit in 2010. So that's quite a big achievement. But we still have a way to go. We're not there quite yet. We have worked a lot on this, especially on heavy-duty transport and logistics, but we need to push further. In this session, we will take a closer look at some flagship projects, very much based on innovation. And we'll talk about disruptive startups, but also talk about Sweden's largest port in Gothenburg on the west coast of Sweden, which is a true front runner in the field of sustainable logistics. So I'm delighted to introduce up on stage 4 leaders. Actually, they're not going to be all on stage. Some will be on the screen here. But with us in real life, here we have Karin Ebbinghaus, CEO of the deep tech e-mobility company Elon Road. Please give her a warm hand. And we also have with us Christopher Laurel from Einride. There's Christopher on the screen, joining us from a studio in Stockholm. And we have with us Christopher Schultz, Program Director Close, that is here in the flesh. Please take a stand here next to me. Yep. And we also have with us Elvir Danzig, who is CEO of the Port of Gothenburg, who is with us digitally also. So terrific to have you all here with us here in Lund. So please start by telling us, start by you, Kari, to tell us in a few minutes how you work in this field.
Yes, so I'm part of a quite disruptive new technology. It's a charging technology that enables any kind of EV to charge while they are driving. And the benefits of that is, of course, that you can have infinite range with a minimal climate impact.
Thank you very much. That's short and sweet. Christopher, tell us how you work.
Yeah, so Closer is a Swedish collaborations platform for increased transport efficiency. So I think that the people that listen to the Medicon Village presentation before can also recognize the way that we work at Closer, so that we are working in private and public partnerships. And the whole idea is, of course, to find grassroots projects in order to transcend and move the whole transport industry forward to more climate-friendly and, of course, economically viable solutions.
Thank you. Einride is also in the e-mobility field, but please elaborate, Christopher, how you work with this section, in this section.
Yeah, sure. A pleasure being here. And the fact of the matter is that when it comes to transport, the industry is facing a lot of challenges, and these challenges aren't new. 7 to 8% of the emissions in the world is directly related to heavy-duty transport. On top of that, we have a lot of NOx pollution and also a lot of inefficiencies. So what we do at Einride is to use the best technology out there that we draw from a number of technology shifts that are taking place simultaneously at the moment, from digitalization, electrification to autonomous technology. And based on those technologies, we build the solutions for the future that enable us to deal with all the challenges that the transportation industry needs to deal with in order to really contribute to the green transition that we are seeing now in Sweden, in Europe and beyond.
Thank you, Christopher. And how about you, Elvir?
We work on two areas. One is creating the infrastructure that's supposed to be available for the green trucks and green ships to fuel. With the best infrastructure and the absolute state-of-the-art technology, we still will not see a change unless we work with the second side of the coin, which is the business model transition. It needs to be more operationally effective and equally cost-effective for companies to change to green transports than to stick with the legacy propulsion. So two sides of the coin, making sure that the infrastructure for charging and alternative fuels are in place, but then more importantly, working on the business model transition.
Thank you, Elvir. So let's start with you, back to you, Karin, again. What do you need from the innovation system to speed up your work?
Well, I know that Einride and Port of Gothenburg and everyone agrees that, of course, partnership is the new leadership. So finding partners is key to do this transition, because we cannot work in silos. It's not the vehicle or the infrastructure, the business model, it's all put together. And I think that the innovation system can really challenge and build a really good platform for all those stakeholders to come together and to unite and perhaps change the mindset of the legacy players and lure them into trying new things, because they want to be as cool as startups. And then just finding that, grease amongst partners. So I think it has a key role.
So how does this resonate with you, what Karin says?
Yeah, of course, and we had a discussion before, how can we actually drive this, the whole transition as we spoke about for the transport system, because we know that we have a large obstacles, of course, to go forward. We need to make sure that all the different types of activities within the transport system needs to be fossil-free, for instance. But also, as Elvira also mentions, we need to find new business models. I think that when we connect this, for instance, to the climate contract, we are also a part of that as an industry for the transport sector, that we also need to play a very vital role in finding new solutions for the cities, for the communities, in order to transport both people and goods. So I think that all new good ideas, as for instance, what the Elon Road stands for, and also you, Christopher, at Einride, is very important to push forward new solutions, new innovations. we are already starting this journey, and we have come quite a long way, but still there are many things to do.
Thank you, Christopher. The word hurdles was brought up in the previous sessions here. So, Edvard, from your perspective, what hurdles do we need to move away for you to be even more speedy in the terms of logistics from the port perspective?
I mean, the obvious ones are access to infrastructure. We will continue hearing that. But I think aside from the obvious ones, which is access to infrastructure and access to green alternative fuels, whether they be synthetic or otherwise, I think we need to start to realize that this is a systematic problem, but we need to get into the details. I can share many examples where local trucking companies, not owning more than a few 5 or 6 trucks, their challenge to turn to green was to make sure that they don't have to wait more than 20 minutes to access the port. If they have to wait a 30th minute, their business model goes bust. So we need to understand their reality, and we need to act on the small things, not just creating a system solution, because we will end up waiting long periods of time. We need to be able to work on solutions here and now. And by that, I mean, I'll give you an example. Port of Gothenburg initiated a green lane. It was a very simple solution. It builds on the fact that a truck that's green comes into the port, bypasses every other truck. That simple solution has generated 32 electric heavy-duty vehicles to be purchased by small mom-and-pop shops because they don't have to wait in line, and their business model goes up.
Well, that's an innovative way of doing it from the city perspective. So, but how about from the company perspective, Elvir? I mean, I was just visiting your port the other week when there was a big launch of e-mobility that I moderated. So I was impressed by the big chargers that you had actually put up. But from a collaboration and innovative perspective when it comes to companies, what needs to be speeded up here?
So again, it comes back to the same thing, right? I mean, we need to understand from an innovative perspective, we need to understand what is required from a company that's asked to invest 4 times more in a green heavy-duty vehicle than a legacy vehicle. What do they need to make sure that they don't go bust? Because again, these are usually small mom-and-pop shops. So what's needed? It is for us to understand their business model, to understand how critical a minute or two is, and to help them get their business model and value chain in place. And we've done that, which is again why January 1st this year, we had 0 electric trucks running in the port. Now we have 29, and we're looking at 100 before year end.
Well, thank you very much, Elvir. Christopher from Mainstage here, from your perspective, innovation, collaboration, what do you need to see speeded up, and by whom?
Well, one of the things that I think is very obvious is that we need to talk about time. And building on what you just said, we have different ideas of time when it comes to innovation. In the particular case of Sweden, someone at some point decided that a research and innovation project should be operating in 36 months or 3 years. We need to change that, because 36 months in Karin and my world, that's equal to 36 years, in fact. We need change much quicker. So by challenging the way in which we have been doing things, and especially having time as the prisma when we look at not only what needs to be done, but also what we are actually doing in accordance to what sense of urgency, there we are seeing a lot of potential going forward to not only finish a lot of really good projects that we have out there, that's for sure, but really make the change necessary according to the timetable that we don't set, that the planet sets.
In front of you here, all of you, with lots of people that work in the innovation system. So if you have any call to action to the decision makers in this system, what would that be? Any of you?
Well, I can go first. Look, we need a level playing field. We need a level playing field where it's business viable to buy equipment, whether that be an ocean freight, meaning a ship, whether that be a truck or an airplane. We need a level playing field, which means we need to increase the cost of fossil fuel usage, not continue subsidizing it.
Thank you for bringing that up. That's actually my favorite topic, the subsidies. So it's always important to talk about this when it comes to this transformation. Karin?
No, but I also think that what Christopher was in time. So when the innovation system directs its question to the legacy players, they have tons of time and resources, but when you address startups, they have no time and no resources. So how do you find a good balance between really influencing but also action? And for me, time to deploy is now. So we have to start doing things and not just investigating things. So really finding projects and demos that we can do and show, because seeing is believing. So I think that is really my call to action.
Thank you. Christopher?
Yeah, so I totally agree. And I think also that we need to do things here and now. We need to test it in real environment. We need to find, I mean, when we are testing in real environment, we can see all the hurdles, as you said, all the obstacles that needs to be changed. We need to do it with several different types of actors. We need to make sure that the transport buyers, the producers, the transport operators, and the government, and the different municipalities and so forth are together in that project, because then we can find the right policies. We can see that this business model is more suitable than the old one and so forth. So I mean, big system demonstrations that we actually do in real environment is very important, and that is what we stand for, that we can actually trial and test in real environment.
When you talk about systems, my mind jumps to policies. And of course, we have had this debate on the reduction numbers and what we bring into our vehicles, and of course, what that does to the transition here. There are some decision makers for the political realm in this room, and plenty of them watching, I hope. So what would you say to them in terms of continuity and just looking at the playing field again? Any of you?
Well, what we are seeing from our perspective is that we have a legacy system in place that is also, unfortunately, creating a bit of legacy in the policy initiatives being taken when it comes to the transition. And let me take one example. We are seeing that incentive programs for actually making it cost comparative to go from diesel to electric is in many cases revolving around a one-to-one replacement. What that means in practice is that you need to actually have a diesel truck in order to get support for buying an electric truck. And for a company like Einride that doesn't operate diesel, that doesn't really make sense. So that's one of the examples of where we see legacy in the policy instruments that are being used to get this transition done. We need to talk about that in addition to time. But if there's one thing that we are really seeing now is the need for real flagship projects. There is one project that is gathering 30 actors, a lot of Swedish actors, that it's about doing an autonomous and connected corridor from Oslo in Norway all the way down to Rotterdam. And what we have there is close to 30 million euros in funding, and a project that will really be able to sort of set the standards when it comes to the way in which we are going to build out corridor after corridor of the transport of tomorrow. So thinking big, that is something that I would like to add on top of time, and also getting policy instruments that we are seeing now right and without legacy.
So Christopher, what would you say were the keys, success factors in getting this corridor in place? What can we learn from this process?
What I think it's about is to ensure that every actor out there that have very considerable ambitions for bringing change to market as quickly as possible has a seat around the table. A lot of the industries that we are seeing that have a lot of strong legacy players have a tendency to exclude actors that can really bring the speed that we need. So getting everyone a voice to be able to contribute with their perspectives, but also, to be frank, with investments that they bring, not only to a sector, but also to Sweden and the Nordics and Europe from all around the world. That's super important in order to get the acceleration and momentum that we need.
Thank you, Christopher. So, Karin, do you get a seat at the table with your technology that is not very new, but it's still sort of little bit.
I would say
very
not enough big seat. So I'd love to be included, Christopher, in that discussion.
Terrific. So I'd like to conclude. We have a minute plus. Do you have any call to action to the innovative system here, the players looking at you from the camera perspective and also in the room?
Yeah, but I would say that, as I mentioned before, we love these system demonstrations and that we actually pilot things. And I think you referred to the MODI project, but we also can see that when it comes to electrification, we need to do that fast and we need to do that swiftly. And that is, we can't just build one charging station. We need to put out charging stations all across Sweden in order to get a fair amount of trucks going out and also to lower the price, of course, of the trucks. So it's all about the amount of things coming out now that we really need to make sure that it goes swiftly and that we have proven technical solutions for it. And also, of course, that we have the right financial instruments to support it. So I would say that keep on doing these type of large-scale demonstrations.
Let's conclude with this final remark, because I see the clock is now down to 0, and it was a good statement from you that could conclude the session. Thank you very much, Christopher from Einride. Thank you very much, Elvira from Gothenburg from the port, Karin Ebbinghaus from Elon Road, and of course you from your agency. Great final words, and thank you very much, Closer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lund. That was very insightful and a key aspect of the transition that we have ahead of us. And it's time for a film that I think will sum up the last panel and the Swedish transportation ambitions for us. It's called Regional Electrified Freight Logistics, Frozen and Refrigerated Transports. Please roll the tape.
Rail är en nationell satsning för att skynda på omställningen till elektrifierade godstransporter på Sveriges vägar. Vi kör och utvärderar drygt 60 tunga regionala ellastbilar med en stor variation utav både rutter och gods. 2 av de logistikaktörer som är med och testar är Dagab och Martin Servera. Båda kör kylda och frysta livsmedel med ellastbilar och här berättar de om sina erfarenheter kring omställningen.
För oss på Martin Servera ligger hållbarhet varmt om hjärtat. Vi har som mål att vara helt fossilfria till 2030. Vi är en restauranggrossist. Vi levererar till restauranger, skolor, sjukhus över hela landet. Omsätter ungefär 15 miljarder. Förutom driften av våra lager är det transporterna som står för den största delen av våra utsläpp.
Dagab är Axfoods inköps- och logistikbolag. Vårt uppdrag är att varje dag leverera Sveriges mest moderna, hållbara och prisvärda kunderbjudande inom mat till våra butiker och kunder. Och det är ett arbete som pågår 24/7 året om. Vi har ju en hög hållbarhetsambition och ett mål om att ha en fordonsflotta som går på varierande bränsleslag. En stor del av vår fordonsflotta körs idag på flytande biogas där vi var tidigt ute. När man sen i branschen börjar prata om ellastbilar så blir vi naturligtvis väldigt nyfikna. Och genom vårt samarbete med Scania så fick vi också deras första serietillverkade BEV under sommaren 2021. Och på den vägen är det.
När vi för ungefär 1 år sedan skaffade vår första elbil så var vi lite osäkra på hur långt den skulle gå. Vi hamnade lite grann i en stress med att köpa laddaren och vi köpte en laddare som endast kunde ladda i 40 kilowatt. Det visade sig vara ett ganska bra drag för att den klarade av att ladda upp ellastbilen betydligt snabbare än vad vi hade utgått från i början. Det har gjort att vi har ändrat lite grann i strategi för det här så att vi kan köpa bilar med mindre batteristorlekar men fortfarande ligga kvar på befintlig laddstruktur. Vilket gör att omställningen har gått mycket snabbare för oss och vi kan även sprida den här på ett enklare sätt ut i landet.
Att köra ellastbilar är såklart bra på flera sätt, framförallt för utsläppen, men också såklart för boende och närmiljö vad det gäller ljudnivå. Sen är ju körbarhet och prestanda avsevärt mycket bättre än på våra lastbilar som har förbränningsmotorer.
Jag som chaufför tycker att i en eldriven lastbil är det mycket lägre bullernivå, vilket gör att jag får en skönare arbetsmiljö. för mig själv. Det är lugnare när jag är ute och åker. Och dessutom har vi laddstationer, vilket jag tycker är super. För då har vi alltid en fulladdad lastbil på morgonen.
Vad behöver förändras framåt för att fler ska kunna elektrifiera sina godstransporter?
För att vi ska få lönsamhet i elbilarna så behöver de rulla dubbelt så mycket som en vanlig bil. Det betyder alltså att vi ska ersätta 2 dieselbilar med en elbil. För att lyckas med det har vi tvingats att göra en del förändringar. Dels måste vi leverera mer på eftermiddagar, kvällar och nätter än vad vi gjort historiskt. Vilket ställer stora krav på oss själva att ställa om, att få chaufförer och arbetsledare att arbeta på kvällar. Men även att få våra kunder att ställa upp på det här, att ta emot leveranser på kvällar och nätter. Vi levererar ju över hela landet och vi har också efterfrågan från kunder över hela landet på att vi ska gå till mer fossilfria leveranser.
Vi här på Fotografiska ser möjligheten för elektrifierade transporter som en självklarhet när man kommer till hållbarhet såklart. Men det också möjliggör ju det för nattransporter, vilket är en enorm fördel att kockarna kan börja jobba direkt när de kommer in. Att allting finns på plats, man har allting man behöver och så sätter man igång. Det är den enda justering vi egentligen har behövt göra och ge ett nyckelkort så de kommer in om nätterna. Det är det enda vi har behövt göra. En rekommendation till alla är ju att ta del av detta. Elektrifierade transporter, nattleveranser möjliggör så mycket tid som man kan göra så mycket bra med.
När det gäller ekonomin så är det svårt att säga just nu. Bilarna är såklart väldigt dyra, men omställningen till el innebär också att man kan få en del stöd. Sen är det såklart en fråga om rådande elpriser kontra andra drivmedelspriser. Men oavsett så får man se det som en investering för miljön och det måste få kosta lite. Hittills har vi inte behövt ändra något direkt. Bilarna kör befintliga rutter som passar bra för elbilar. Men vi kommer såklart behöva göra en del anpassningar i framtiden ju fler elbilar vi sätter i drift så de kan uppplaneras för fler sträckor. Det som krävs för att kunna skala upp det är en bra effektkapacitet till våra laddare på våra terminaler. Vi skulle även önska att kunna få en högre totalvikt på våra lätta lastbilar för att kunna elektrifiera dem. Här finns idag en utmaning kopplat till körkortsregler som hindrar vår omställning. Sen behöver vi såklart CMS-stöd och vi behöver också fortsatt stöd från staten.
Vi på Stockholms stad har i flera år jobbat med tysta off-peak-transporter. Och det har vi gjort i en rad olika testprojekt tillsammans med branschaktörerna. Sen har vi sammanfattat alla de erfarenheter som vi har gjort i rutiner och processer så att uppskalningen av det här ska funka så smidigt som möjligt. Och i korthet så kan man säga att det handlar om ett funktionsbaserat regelverk och transportdispenser som vi har förlängt då till 3 år. Och varför jobbar då vi på Stockholms stad med den här frågan kan man undra. Jo, men det handlar ju om att när staden växer och kampen om ytan hårdnar, då behöver vi bli bättre på att utnyttja den befintliga infrastrukturen mer effektivt. Om vi då kan hitta lösningar som gör att delar av den tunga trafiken flyttar från högtrafik till tider när färre trafikanter är ute och rör sig, då förbättrar vi både framkomlighet i systemet och skapar en mer trivsam stad. Samtidigt som vi förbättrar tillgängligheten för de transporter av gods och avfall som är en förutsättning för den levande staden. Vi tror också att den här typen av regelverk kan vara ett viktigt incitament för aktörer som ska investera i tunga elektriska fordon. Och därmed så är det ju någonting som hjälper oss mot vårt mål för en klimatpositiv stad. Sammanfattningsvis kan man säga att vi slår väldigt många flugor i en smäll genom att jobba med de här frågorna. Och därför har vi på Stockholms stad satsat på det här. Men vi hoppas ju också att fler städer inser potentialen och nyttorna som man kan göra med det här. Och vi delar mer än gärna med oss till andra om våra erfarenheter.
Vad som är viktigt här nu för att kunna utöka räckvidden på bilarna och snabbare elektrifiera, det är att vi hjälper varandra med laddningen. Vi erbjuder vår laddstruktur till våra kollegor i branschen så att de kan komma hit och ladda hos oss. Och vi kan givetvis även då utnyttja deras struktur då, för att öka räckvidden och snabba på elektrifiering.
Hur har elektrifieringsresan gått hittills för Dagab och Martin och Servera? Och vad vill de skicka med till sina kollegor i branschen?
Sen när vi skaffade vår första ellastbil för drygt 1 år sedan har vi lärt oss otroligt mycket. Och det har gått väldigt snabbt för oss att lära det. De fördelar som vi ser förbättrad arbetsmiljö för egen personal, förbättrad arbetsmiljö hos våra kunder. Vi har fått en mycket bättre ekonomi och dessutom har vi påverkat miljön till det bättre. Ni som tvekar om det är värt att skaffa en ellastbil eller inte, tveka inte för länge.
Vi har kört med dem nu i 2 år snart och det är mycket mindre problem än vi någonsin kunde tro. Så när man släpper ett nytt bränsle så brukar det alltid vara stora inkörningsproblem. Det här har fungerat klockrent så här långt. Elbilarna finns nu, det är inget att vänta på.
Thank you. That was inspirational and great examples of collaboration. I think the message was loud and clear. Don't hesitate. Whatever is the next step in the transition, take it. And as we've been slightly on repeat, we will continue to be on repeat because we're going to talk more about collaborations, what we call challenge-based innovation. And this is a powerful and important message. Co-creation is a fundamental. Period. You can't succeed on your own. So let me introduce a panel that gives an additional perspective. AI Sweden and SenseAct have, by investing together and sharing with many, scaled faster and reached bigger impact. I'd like to introduce Johanna Bergman, Head of Strategic Initiatives at AI Sweden, and Paul Hastings, who is the Chief Financial Officer at SenseAct. Welcome to this panel here today and day 2 of Sweden Innovation Days. Paul, could you tell us what is SenseAct and why are you collaborating with AI Sweden?
Okay, SenseAct, we are a Swedish software company focused on active safety and autonomous drive solutions for production vehicles. We are part of the Volvo group of companies. So you will find our software in the upcoming Polestar 3, the Volvo EX90 that's coming. So our mission in life is about getting towards zero faster. It's about avoiding collisions and really getting fatalities down to zero. So in order to do that, you need to bring some kind of intelligence in the software into the vehicle. So with that, we rely heavily on deep learning, computer vision, AI. So that's very much at the core of what we do. And that's really, that triggered the relationship with AI Sweden and around the collaboration. So we're actually one of the 4 founding partners of AI Sweden. And that came as those partners saw the need, really, we need to speed up innovation. And the only way to do that is to collaborate around that.
Johanna, this is called challenge-based innovation. Could you talk about the concept and what that means in practice?
Yes, so I would say that AI Sweden, as the National Center for Applied AI, we have this as a way of working from the beginning. So we want our partners to collaborate around the critical challenges, and that can be societal challenges, it can be technical challenges, organizational challenges, or everything at once, that it's actually often are. And to do that, you really have to be able to collaborate, I believe that you really need to have a challenge to focus on. And that has been really key from the beginning, and it's really working.
You need a challenge to focus on. Does that mean jointly formulating a mission? Is it a question of direction that you need to collectively think about?
I think both. So it can be a societal challenge that a lot of partners want to solve, and you need a lot of collaborators to be able to do that. You need to build an ecosystem to really address the big challenges. But it can also be smaller, more technical challenges, for example, where a lot of different actors actually have the same challenge. It can be that you cannot share data. It could be something about language technology or something that a lot of partners need, and then you can focus on that challenge as well. So it can really be both the big challenges and smaller challenges.
So break it down to us so we understand. Organizationally, what does this mean? What are the modules or the impetus from your end to make this work?
Yeah, to make this work. I would say to really be the platform where you can come and collaborate. So we are neutral and non-profit, and work with the entire Sweden. So I think that is, you need this neutral arena to collaborate. And sometimes a translator that understands that a challenge in one sector actually is the same challenge that another sector is facing. So act as this translator between different sectors and different organizations to understand that we are actually facing the same challenges and we can solve them together. So I would say that is the key things that we bring.
Paul, something that we discussed yesterday was not invented here. Like, how do you conceptually take individuals with competing business models and competing markets to address the same challenge and actually share and not just take from the collaboration?
I mean, for us, we haven't really stumbled upon competition where we are in this. It's actually, I think the collaboration, what we have is actually you avoid some of the competitive aspects, just get in and you get speed. I mean, one of the areas where we really capitalize on this is what we call edge learning and edge computing. And in that, this is a great example where we come in with our competencies. We've got HPE who bring in compute and elaborate with that. Intel is there. You've created the arena. We meet with the MITs and the Cambridge of the world. We come to the arena, you create the arena, and together we really capitalize on what we call the data factory, the foundation learning lab. That's where we meet and elaborate. I think it actually came from AI Sweden. It's like going to the gym. We go to the gym, we train, and that way we innovate faster. And there's no really competitive, it's just that we complement each other tremendously well.
You need a PT that forces you to come as well.
Yeah.
What's your take, Kaisa, on this?
I'm just so curious. So what kind of mental skills or personal skills do you look for when in collaborations or in organizations? What are the main skills that make this possible?
So I think you need a lot of different skills. I think the translator role of understanding the business challenges from different organizations is one. I think also sometimes you need very often you need to bring experts that are maybe not, so we're focusing on AI, but we also need to understand the data. So sometimes you need to bring the experts that really understands the data, but they don't know that much of AI. And then you need to bring their expertise in to really understand the challenge, understand the data, understand what we're working on. So I would say that you need as diverse skill set as possible to solve these challenges.
And do you create living labs, or how do you interact with each other?
One example is the Edge Learning Lab, and that was a lot of different organizations bringing hardware equipment to AI Sweden and set up a lab in no time.
Show and tell.
Yeah, so we didn't have time to wait for funding or for a decision on setting up this lab. So a lot of organizations came in and actually put their infrastructure there. And now we're starting to really see the impact of that and start to innovate on this technology, because then you need all the other competences around this as well. So now we actually have hospitals there looking into how to use edge learning, decentralized AI, the same technology as we have the car companies and automotive companies working on. It's really cross-sector, and this is the arena to meet.
Right. And we are, of course, happy for you and the work that you guys are doing, but this is also about sharing the learnings. And if we lift and have a bit of a helicopter view and look at this from maybe a geopolitical perspective, how can we benefit from the things that you've learned from a Swedish, Nordic, European perspective? What would you like to share?
But I think this way of collaborating is kind of unique. So if we look at the AI development globally, it's driven mainly by large American companies. In Sweden, we can do things a bit differently, I believe, with a lot of different organizations, a lot of different sectors and industries working together to solve big challenges. We have a strong public sector as well in this, and I think this is really something we can bring, that you can actually do this in collaboration, and the challenges go cross organizations and cross sectors.
I think AI Sweden also, I mean, maybe it's a Swedish style, but the way what AI Sweden does, it's very much when you just get there, where it's very engaging, the environment in that. I think it comes quite natural for tech companies like us. We kind of we used to working in ecosystems, but it is kind of a cultural shift, a way of work that you need to collaborate, but you really capitalize on it. I mean, what we do, there's synergies with that, with like edge computing. It's the same. There's a project with AI Sweden and European Space Agency for satellites. The security tech industry, they're driving the cybersecurity aspects. The healthcare industry, they're at the forefront on privacy issues. All those are relevant for us as well. We lead in one area, but we really benefit from all of this sharing, and we would never have the speed we have today without this type of collaboration.
Devil's advocate, any unforeseen bottlenecks that you'd like to warn people of? What was harder than you thought?
Good question. I think now we really need to go from this kind of experiment, proof of concept, to really make an impact. And then we need significant projects. We need efforts from all organizations involved. So I really think right now we're in a phase of going from this experimenting and proof of concepts to real scale and implementation.
Next step.
I think on the technical side, it's going better than we could envision actually on that. I think maybe one area where I'm not sure where we've touched into that, but that's kind of the regulatory environment is a bit square. It's the speed that
diplomat, Paul.
The technology is going so fast, so that's it. But we need a especially in Europe, a regulatory environment that has also a little bit of a strategic aspect of it.
Okay, the regulatory aspect is a slightly square. We'll take that with us. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you. Thank you. Well, empowering system innovation for the green transition, the Swedish way. Welcome to this session on system innovation for the green transition, presented by Swedish Mining Innovation. For the next 20 minutes, we look forward to digging into Sweden's approach to one of the key global paradoxes of becoming sustainable. I'd like to welcome our panel, Anders Sand, who is research manager at Boliden Mineral, Charlotte Andersson, program director at Swedish Mining Innovation, Johanna Franzén. She is strategic lead at missions at Vinnova, Sweden's innovation agency, and Mikael Ramström, vice president R&D, Epiroc Digital Solutions Division. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Charlotte, could you start and set the scene for us? Why is mining important, and why do we need a systemic approach here?
So I could ask a question back then. Why is metals important? So, I mean, we use metals in everything. And metals, you can find it in everything you use, but even so, it's used to produce everything else. So I would say that metals is the base for our modern society. So, and of course, we want sustainable production of metals. I mean, that's kind of natural in the green transformation, but I mean, in overall. And of course, we want to recycle metals. That's very important. But as it is today, we also need to extract from primary sources. So we need mines. So we also need very sustainable mines and sustainable value chains. So that sort of answers why, but why do we need a systematic approach? And well, I come from the strategic innovation program, Swedish Mining Innovation, which is one of the pioneering innovation program, which is a joint initiative between Formas, Swedish Energy Agency, and Vinnova. And we started around 10 years ago. And our mission is to increase the international competitiveness and to find a sustainable way to extract these metals. And today we will tell you more about this.
Thank you very much. There's a lot to unpack there, but we'll park that for a second. And Johanna, move on to you. And could you talk to us about your involvement in this, and maybe also give the viewers a bit of background on what is the emissions approach?
Well, this is a very interesting example of working with system innovation, and that's a big task for us at Vinnova, how to do that and how to approach the new frame of innovation policy. And I think this is an inspiring example of that. So that's why I'm here today. If you want to know more about missions, I would say that that is one way of approaching system innovation challenges on how to work with that. How do you actually make it tangible and doable in some sense? And missions could be one answer to that.
And could you give us a bit more on missions? Because I think it's a framework in the governmental agency world that is very ingrained, but not everyone is aware of the missions thinking approach. If you could tell us a bit more what that means in terms of both story and process.
Yeah, sure. We started a couple of years ago at Vinnova piloting mission-oriented innovation. After that, Mazzucato report came out, and the European Commission stated that we should start working with this. And we ended up with this very simple, elegant model, but how to actually do it in practice wasn't really there. So we started exploring and using design-oriented methods to sort of unpack what is missions, what is it about, what do we need to do, what is different, is it the same thing, is it parts of what we do today that integrate in a different way? All these questions came up. And we started looking at certain areas that we thought had a systemic approach, a need for a systemic approach, like mobility or food, that in themselves need sort of addressing the challenges they face with system thinking in some way, or new ways of thinking, new ways of working. Since the challenges are so complex, we need to do it in a different way. We build on this for several, maybe it's decades actually, with challenge-driven innovation, with the strategic innovation programs, generation after generation of instruments of working with innovation that sort of build this experience that we need to do even more to get that extra way. So missions, and I think our approach to system innovation is that you need to address many different perspectives at the same time. So you need to talk about regulation, culture, behavior, and technical solutions at around the same table. So how do you gather these different approaches or different even groups of people that work with these things together? And missions can be a way of doing that, in solving how to work together and build the trust that you need to move forward, even though you have different ways of entering the system.
So I'm hearing breaking silos.
Yes.
And I'm hearing the equivalent of the Swedish smorgasbord, different perspectives and tastes and flavors. In a beautiful mixture. Anders, you're from Boliden, so back to the mining aspect of missions and systemic. Tell us about your input into this and how you see the sustainable mining future.
Well, I would say in the mining industry we have been working for a long time with that type of system innovation approach. Maybe not always calling it system innovation, but we have a long history of working together with supplier companies, like we have a representative from Epiroc here today, and also other companies, and looking at what challenges we have and what kind of competences do we need to work with those challenges, and that will end up in a systems approach. Also missions, I think we haven't really called it missions as such, but maybe you could see it also in that way, that if you start from the end, looking what do you want as an end result, that will be the mission, and then you will break that down, the path, how should we reach that, and then you have a lot of different subtasks.
You want to share with us what is the end goal? What is your vision for sustainable Swedish mining?
Well, if you say from our perspective, it would be to have top-class safety for the workers in our mines, high level of productivity. I'm making a bit diffuse statements here now, but productivity, competitiveness, that sort of things.
But inherently, it will need to be diffuse, vague statements, because we're going somewhere we don't exactly know the steps. So don't worry about being vague. It's about being ambitious. Michael, take over from there. What are your vague but ambitious visions for Swedish mining?
For us, it is to help our customers to find solutions that will exactly do what Anders said: safety, productivity, and sustainability. And we have technologies that we are innovating in that includes digitalization, automation, and electrification. And this has been our three main pillars for Epiroc during the last couple of years, actually. And we are investing not just in innovation. We actually have more than 1,000 new colleagues into our company, from other companies that we have acquired over the last 2-3 years. And it's all into these areas. So as a company, we try to move away from just being a supplier of a machine to actually have solutions that deliver exactly what Anders talked about.
And I think one of the aspects that we need to cover, and maybe our more cynical viewers are asking themselves, is it possible to do sustainable mining? How do you address the conflicts of interest and some of the riskier aspects of mining?
So, can I answer that?
Please, go ahead.
No, but I'm thinking from this system perspective that we are discussing. I mean, to be able to do that, you have to jointly work together, and you have to find different actors with maybe different interests in this, but also with different technological background. You need to work with industry, academia, and also the public sector, and people with different interests. And I think that has been one of the successes we have had, that we have been able to sort of join forces in this and work together towards a joint mission, then we could say. So that's one step in that direction, I would say.
Also, if I could add something, I would say that you cannot have a sustainable society, as we talk about now, unless you have mining. So we are contributing both to the rest of society in providing the means for making it sustainable, but also we are working with our own sustainability internally. So.
Okay, so what are your reflections on this?
No, first of all, as a governmental organization, I'm always curious about what do you want from us? How can we help? How can we contribute to making this systemic changes that you find necessary? But what would you, if you could change something tomorrow, what would you do? What would you change?
Are you thinking in the system,
yes,
or in the...
Or in the collaboration? What would you see as the most important thing to do tomorrow?
I think the collaboration as it is now has worked very well, and I would say that one of the key points is maybe not to say change anything tomorrow, to quite the opposite. I think, Joanna, you often point this out, endurance is something that you need to be able, if you want to make a real change, you need to have endurance and to be able to look forward at that mission and to work together with many different actors in the system, I would say. So no immediate change, at least not from my side. Quite the opposite in that sense.
But endurance and curiosity and...
Of course, you need all that. And I think, of course, from the governmental perspective, it's very important to have that official perspective of things, but that we also can work together with different interests. Yeah.
Maybe I can add, I mean, as a company, we want to be commercial and competitive, so we don't see a need really other than regulations and legislations. But I would say towards the universities here in Sweden, that is really educating the engineers, the people we need in the future, the leaders, and also all the innovators. If the government really supports that we can have good education in Sweden, is really something that makes a difference.
I love it. That's a really big wish on the wish list. We need a good education in Sweden. I think we should all adhere to that. This is a day of enabling innovation the Swedish way, and we're now talking about Swedish mining. I'd like to put this in an international context. How are you working in a different way, both in terms of missions, but the actual mining? And how are we inspiring or collaborating with mining in other parts of the world?
Okay, so it's up to me to answer. I would say that the Swedish mining cluster, as we call it, it is something that is becoming quite renowned also internationally, so many people know about it. But I think there's no easy solution to reach there. You have to work together for a long time, build trust with the collaborating partners you have, and then drive the development forward. So I think that's very much part of the secret, to have a high degree of trust between the different actors in the network.
And you're right. We actually, in the Nordics, we are very close. We work a lot together, and Boliden have mines all over the Nordics. And so for us, when we talk internationally, it's actually not even in the Nordics. We go beyond that. We go into Europe, but we go beyond that even. So a lot of the mining industry collaboration is really global when it comes to this. A lot of innovation is driven and initiated here in the Nordics and then implemented around the world.
If I can add something else, I think it's also important that we have a joint mission and a high ambition to this, because I think that has been one of the things that have been able to do this. It was a joint mission from all these different aspects to that we formulated, and then we have been working together for that mission for quite some time.
And that said also about the international aspect, I think you always have to look at what is happening internationally. Now Epiroc is working quite much on a global market, but also us as a mining operator, we also need to look at what is happening in other places of the world, because we are not best at everything. So definitely we should always have a wider look than what is happening inside Sweden.
Yeah, there's a dance that's happening. Just as you were saying, this is a critical part of the green transition. We cannot do this without mining. However, mining doesn't look the same all around the world, and it's not ubiquitous with sustainable mining, and therefore it needs to be addressed in that way. The storytelling aspect, which is an important theme throughout these 2 days, encompasses this, the balance act between how not to do it and how to do it. And Vinnova, how do you see your role there as a government agency?
In how not to do it, or how to do it?
Thinking about how to do it and addressing the fact that there's a counter narrative and there's a counter reality in mining that is part of the story.
Well, I think our role is to provide the tools to make this possible as well as we can, but also at certain points have some expectations and some frames maybe on how we want the directionality to work, for example, and inspire for that, and also create processes that makes it possible, like we do with impact innovation, for example. I think that is our role. Then when it comes to mining in particular, and Vinnova's role in supporting mining industry globally, I would say I think these parties have a better stake in that than we do. Our role is as an enabler.
We could talk about this for a long while. We have a few minutes left, and I'd like to take some time to ask all of you, including you, Kajsa, what are the key success factors in this systemic innovation, both in terms of sustainable mining and what it means for the green transition? And Kajsa, I will start with you.
I think one of the things that we just recently did was to publish a report on the whole value chain of batteries, for example. We engage with a lot of different researchers and the academia, of course, who hold the knowledge. And as you said, we are enablers. How do we facilitate that we can spread this knowledge? I think that is a really important contribution, if I should say it. So, yeah.
Key success factors?
Well, I think I sort of mentioned it a bit. Endurance is one, but also that we have this possibility to work together with also this funding from the state. I think that's important, but also, of course, the funding from all the involved parties, and that it's also sort of transparent, that many can be involved and it's open. I think that's important.
Endurance, capital, and transparency.
Yeah.
Starting to sound slogans here, but yeah.
I'm running out of things.
You need to find new buzzwords.
No, I think trust is really important, and also the openness in allowing for some sort of agility to let actors come and go.
It's important because it's something that you have, or it's important because it's something that you need to develop over time?
I think you need to develop it, and I think that this is a good example of that the time factor has played well in this sense, that you have worked for a long time together and you have learned through the way and built that trust. And it's also something, I guess, you give, not something you get. So you have to sort of have that with you when you start.
Trust. Thank you.
I can only support. It's trust. It's trust in the collaboration you have around innovation. It is looking at the team, looking at what competences and what parts of the value chain you have in the team. And often when we go to places with a lot of mining, Canada, Australia, Chile, we talk about Team Sweden. And it's really a good name for all what we are doing here. It's the Swedish way, Team Sweden.
Team Sweden, yeah. No, it's been proven throughout these 2 days that everyone comes back to that. There's trust, there's collaboration, and it's a national sport. We do it very well. Your final success factors.
I have a new word, so I will say synergy. You need to have win-win situations between the different actors that are collaborating.
I'm going to challenge you on that. Do you need to have the synergies from start? Do you need to know that there are synergies?
I think you need to have some basic thinking that I will get something out of this. You shouldn't, of course, be greedy. The others should also get something out. This is something I think we have quite well working forms now inside the Swedish mining cluster. But if we think of widening it and including more societal actors, then we have to revisit this thought and see that do we have a situation where everyone is winning?
And in any situation where you have conflicts of interest, synergies become harder. So we've identified a bottleneck, and I look forward to seeing you all in a year to see how you've addressed this. Trust, transparency, endurance, synergy, facilitation.
Team Sweden.
Team Sweden. You've got work to do out in the mining. Thank you. And now it's time for 2 more startups that have participated in the Ignite Sweden matchmaking. I would like to welcome Gaia Biomaterials and Nils Andersson. Tell us what you're doing.
Yes, hello. As you mentioned, my name is Nils Andersson. I represent Gaia Biomaterials. And we're a company that offers biodegradable and compostable solutions. And we do that through our patented formula Biodolymer. We do not offer any end products, but instead we focus on the development and production of biomaterials. Biodolymer runs in all existing machines, so there is no need for additional investments. When it comes to Biodolymer, it also offers considerable savings for the companies using it, since you can reduce the energy consumption quite substantially, and this is due to the lower working temperatures needed for Biodolymer. You can also increase the production output, since the material has proved to be very well, it works very well in the machines, meaning that you can increase the production speed. And the final way that you can increase your productivity with Biodolymer is through thinner wall thickness. And that is due to the fact that Biodolymer is a quite strong material. So you can, if you have the opportunity, you can reduce the thickness of the material, of the products. So that's pretty much all I have to say. I hope I was within the minute.
Yeah, well, you were, and very cool indeed. Could you tell us what industries are you addressing and what you need to do to succeed?
Well, I'd like to say that we basically offer materials for most industries that are in need of biodegradable and compostable solutions. But if I have to pick one, I would say that it's the packaging industry, and more to the point, especially the food packaging industry, because we see that there is a lot of challenges there, and we believe that we'll have a good solution as well.
Well, good luck. I look forward to reading about your successes. And now I'd like to welcome up the second startup for this session, which is Heimas and the founder Marek Hejduk. Tell us, what are you doing?
As you know, I'm the CEO of Heimas Agrifiber Technology, or Heimas is the better pronunciation. We tested and invented, now patented, a commercial way of taking farming byproduct or field waste, the parts of the plants that the farmers aren't using, and we use a very low chemical, so we're not using any sulfide or chlorides to make any kind of pulp out there that's eco-friendly. And our process conclusively would reduce current as compared to wood biomass CO2 emissions, would reduce it by 88%. And more importantly, based on the UN Global Water Crisis report I read this morning, our process uses 80% less water. And our safety is incredibly high as compared to the highly corrosive alternative in wood biomass.
Fascinating. I'm sorry, I mispronounced the name of your company. I will do better next time. I was wondering, which industries would benefit the most from your solution?
So end users, manufacturers of pulp. So as the world is moving to more sustainable and ESG goals, broadly speaking, what our technology does is reduce the reliance on wood biomass, leaving forests alone, and concentrates on farming in agricultural and rural communities to increase their productivity. So it's not just producing food, but it's also allowing us to utilize it in new means, and all within circular environmental principles.
Have you benefited from the matchmaking? Have you met anyone interesting?
I believe we regularly refer to Sweden Innovation Days as a dream come true. It has been phenomenal working with the teams here.
Well, fantastic. A dream come true. Well, let's end it there. It doesn't get better than that. Good luck with your businesses, and I look forward to reading about you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will be moving on to talk about powerful Swedish large-scale language models. And unless you've been living under a rock these last 3 months, you should have heard of ChatGPT 3 and maybe even ChatGPT 4. 3, 4, I can't even speak. 4. Powerful AI, natural language processing tools. So the question is there a Swedish version of that? Well, kind of. There is a tangible need for Swedish language models, both in the public and private sector. The GPT SW3 project brings together stakeholders from the public sector, industry and academia with the aim of reducing the threshold for using advanced language models to solve text processing tasks. We have a panel here to discuss this, and I would like to welcome Magnus Sahlgren, who's Head of Research for National Language Understanding at AI Sweden, and Anders Innerman, who is Professor of Scientific Visualization and Director of WASP at Linköping University. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Magnus, tell us about your work and how that relates to Swedish language processing.
Exactly. So we have been leading an initiative here in Sweden together with WASP and other stakeholders to build the first large-scale generative language model for Swedish, but in extension also for the other Nordic languages. So we have been training on data for Swedish, Norwegian, Danish, Icelandic, also English and programming languages. And the goal is to do this as a research project in order to learn how to do this, build competence, experience, and also to do research on the model training, the model use, model refinements, and also to use our wonderful resources here in Sweden where we can actually accomplish this.
So this is a panel not only about the actual technology, but the collaborative aspect of developing this. Anders, what's your role in developing these tools?
I mean, the WASP program is dealing a lot with artificial intelligence, and very early on we identified the emergence of the large language models and the need for resources, infrastructures to actually train these models that are extremely demanding in terms of the compute power that you need. And the Wallenberg Foundation invested in a large-scale resource hosted by the National Supercomputer Center in Sweden that has been dedicated towards using the processing required to train the Swedish model. And this is at the point where we are now. So we have really put Sweden in the driving seat of developing language models, thanks to the infrastructure, but also because of the talent of the researchers behind the models. And Sweden is building capacity, we're building competence, and now we're at the point when we're looking at what kind of uses do we see for the trained models, and what kind of processes do we need to put it out there in use, not only in academic research, but also in industry, and opening up so many business opportunities for Swedish companies.
Brilliant bridge, and those were what I wanted to talk about, because the obvious question that you might ask yourself in the audience is, why does Sweden need its own language processing tools?
I want to know.
Yeah.
Should I start?
Please tell us.
So I think
there's always a why.
Yeah, there is always a why. I think it's important to realize that the current breed of language models, the transformer-based language models, has been completely disruptive in the field of language processing, specifically, of course, but in general, in the entire field of machine learning and AI. It has changed the entire landscape basically overnight. And this new breed of large language models, to which GPT-3, and we pronounce it SWE, SW3.
Everyone learns a little every day.
Exactly.
Sweet.
So that is an example of a large language model. And these large language models show really interesting properties and capabilities. So for one example, they become very general. So they can be applied to lots of different types of tasks, basically any task you throw at it. And they also have what we call zero-shot capacity, which is you can solve a task without specifically training it for that task. And they also have an interesting property where you start to see emergent abilities of these large language models. So I think it's from a research perspective, we need to be doing this. We need to build the competence and the experience on how to do this.
So that spurs on the question, are we doing this because we are in parallel with other initiatives building something that could compete? Or is it important to get the indirect consequences of doing this type of research and having this capability within Sweden?
Both.
Both.
Yeah, I mean, you really need to provide the competence for Sweden.
So we can compete internationally.
So we can compete internationally to make use of the models. I mean, we're at early stages here, and the power is being unleashed by the people who are actually training the models, who are nudging them, fine-tuning them. And as we talked about, Magnus and I before, the notion of moving into the next domain, which is the multimodality, connecting them to other sensory inputs like images, visualization, talking to your image rather than talking to the bot, and all of those things that we place ourselves in a position to do that with the Swedish language model.
Can I just also add?
Go.
I mean,
everyone wants to say something. It's so
yes, it's such an interesting topic.
But it's the most fun topic. Yeah, but due to this collaboration that we have built here in Sweden, we are actually in a leading position in Europe when it comes to this. So the GPT-3 model is the largest currently available European model that has been trained from scratch, on a national initiative level. So I think that with a little bit of work, we can maybe retain this leading position going forward, and especially going for other modalities and other refinements of the model training. I think it's going to be exciting going forward.
I'm so excited to hear about all this. But for me for somebody who's working at an energy agency, for example, or a governmental organization, can I use it in my work? Can I use it in my daily life? And how would that case look like? How would that situation look like?
So I think it's important to realize we are not building a product, we're not building a service, we're building a research artifact, and we do research while building the artifact. Yeah. And what we've seen so far is that we do have the competence, we do have the infrastructure, we do have the capability to build things like this in Sweden. I think the next question is, how do we now commercialize this on a national level? How do we, for example, deploy these models so that everyone can use them without necessarily doing it in a way?
Two things that might not fit in the same sentence. Commercialize and let everyone use it. Is this a commercial aspect, or is it Hello Sweden build upon what we've built?
Both again. I mean, the foundation of what we're doing on the research level is, of course, open research, it's publishable, but it's also the possibility to, on top of that structure that we are perhaps even open sourcing, to build your business model on top of that. So you capitalize on what has been developed on the research level. And that's where we're heading, and that's why we need that competence. Like we talked, we need an army of engineers who are capable of prompting the models,
is taking 100,000 of them, so you need to compete with that. But things are moving quite quickly, and I don't think we thought about having this conversation a year ago when we did Sweden Innovation Days. What will we address, both as opportunities and challenges, when we meet next year?
So with a little bit of luck, we will continue building these models and enhancing them, and we know how to do that, and we have the infrastructure. We need a little bit of better funding organization to do this, but my hunch is that we will talk about the first steps towards more general artificial intelligence in a year or so.
I think I would agree with that, and just to put things in perspective, when we talk about this, we can compare what's happened just in the past year now. We can compare to what happened when the internet appeared and we had the information revolution. Now we're looking at the intelligence revolution. It's just as big, and it's going to affect everyone and everything. So a year from now, we will be talking about applications that we haven't been dreaming about so far. So it's a brand new era that's opened up, and it happened so quickly.
Goosebumps again. We have a few more minutes before we move to our closing remarks. Could you address one of the topics that have been highlighted today, which is the skill set we were talking about a little? Who are the people that we need? Do they need to come to Sweden? Are they in Sweden already? How do you address that aspect of the coming year?
I think for a program like WASP, and I'm really proud to say that within the next couple of years, before the year 2031, actually, we will graduate close to 700 PhDs. Highly skilled people in artificial intelligence. Many of them will be knowledgeable in this domain. So it's actually 1 doctor per week that's coming out of the program now.
With a one-way ticket to Norrland.
Not to Norrland, but in general.
And woolen underwear.
And the challenge for Sweden now is to really capitalize on these people that are coming out and make sure that they find their positions within the Swedish companies. So it's like that receiving capacity is one of the key factors to build in the future now.
We should also not forget that Sweden has a long and strong tradition in natural language processing, and I think this development also enhances our capabilities there.
It sounds to me like a new literacy, honestly, to be able to understand AI.
Well, I don't know what you're still here for. You need to go back to work, continue to research, and I'll see you in a year, and we will laugh at the applications that we really didn't think about building 2022. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you.
Thanks.
It's 4:45. I can't believe this day has just galloped past. And it's time to do some closing remarks and reflections. And luckily, we have a panel. Joachim is back and Kajsa is back. Kajsa, what are your impressions and reflections of today?
So many focused on collaboration, breaking down silos, what is necessary, what are the necessary mindsets that will bring us together forward, learning from the past, regenerative, what are the key knowledges that we take with us and that we bring forward. I think that is extremely important.
I was saying in my opening remarks that you could laugh at some sort of the Swedish way of doing it and maybe think that we lack humility here. And I think today has proven that in panel after panel, in technology breakthrough after technology breakthrough, we have built a way to collaborate and co-create. And there's a natural way to trust and be transparent with both competing entities, but stakeholders that have different angles and priorities. And I think, I don't know what your reflection is, but it's also in a quite mature, sober way, highlighting conflicts of interest. Like, it's a natural part.
It's a natural part, but the challenges are systemic in their character. So we need to just find a way to compensate and live through those differences, because there will be different thoughts of everything, but we need to come together around the same table to be able to solve these issues.
And also, I don't think we will get together or go forward if we don't have these zones of irritation and
friction is a natural part.
Friction is friction.
There, it was. We could have been rehearsing that friction.
Yes.
So, Joachim, we've had an open chat and we've had an open Menti throughout the day.
Yeah,
we had monitoring that.
We had a segment in the beginning of the day where we talked about alternative futures, and we showed a short commercial break from the future, introducing the baby builder, which was, the chat went wild, and
really?
So really happy to see that happen. Provocative.
Give us some snippets.
Sure. This is awful. This is appalling. And then some guys were like, are we going to buy this at IKEA? And another guy was like, yeah, but should it be in flat packages, or does it come in pieces, or do we add extras? You know, yeah.
Was there a gender difference in the
I
commentary?
didn't actually look at that, but let's get back to that. Could be, yeah. So that was fun, and exactly what we want to accomplish with speculative design, to provoke feelings and insights and a dialogue around that. Friction. And then we had a Menti question. So today we went dystopic, and we asked ourselves, given the topics that we covered today, what's the worst case scenario in 2035?
It has.
So then it went dark. So we have two main categories in the Menti responses. We have mass extinction. That's, well, we all die. That's one of the snippets from the Menti. I mean, either it's a consequence of climate change, or it's war, and also or AI. One guy wrote that AI will wipe out what is destroying the Earth, the humans. Yeah, so yeah, dark, okay? And then we have the category more like coping, coping with the worst case scenario. It could also be climate change, you know, regarding biodiversity. Someone wrote, bees are gone, world famine, large-scale displacements due to climate change, failed states, massive chaos. But we're still around for a while. Or atomic winter from war. We have one that might interest you. People lack good communication skills, and it causes mental health problems. What do we think about communication skills in the future?
Goodness, I think it's alpha omega for every relationship, right? You know it from your own relationships, right? We need to be able to talk together. We've heard it today from our panelists. We need to be able to talk together and understand each other and be curious. So definitely, if you're seen, heard, you exist, right?
Yeah, sure.
But Joachim, we didn't do this exercise just to be dystopian and revel in darkness.
No.
There's a point to the exercise.
The point is that if possible, well, you should transform this negative energy, this feeling of the gut feeling that these kinds of replies make you have. Turn that into something good. What can you do to avoid this future? What are your capabilities, or what kind of capabilities do you want to achieve or get to enable to like address this? And everyone can do something, and everybody can do something more than they're doing today. So don't dwell in these kind of dark ideas about the future, but rather make them into something good. Everybody can do something about it. And here's my saying that we haven't had time to do this today, but usually I tend to say that the future is nothing that just happens to us.
No.
It's not someone else sitting on a chair somewhere with a white cat and deciding whatever the future is going to be. It's up to us. We create the future. So if we decide what kind of future we want, then we can achieve that.
Channeling my inner cynic, and I'm sitting watching this, and I'm thinking, but what can I do? How can I empower? I'm not part of any of these systemic programs or collaborations. I'm not in. I might as well watch Netflix or do something else. How do you allow people to get involved, even though that might not be everyone's natural tendency?
I mean, okay, step one, talk about it. Don't like shove it under the mat and pretend that there's no issues in the world today, because there are, and we should just communicate about it and learn how to talk about it in a proper way, and that way we could actually come up with good ideas on how to make a difference.
I need to feed my children, I need to pay the bills, I find this scary, I find this too complex to grasp, so I might feel a bit stupid actually, and therefore I won't address it. I'm going devil's advocate.
Yeah, sure, but still you have feelings, right? So don't be scared about your feelings. Let them out. Just talk about it. I mean, start there. If you don't know what to do today, you don't have to have the answers, but still you can just make sure, because most people actually think about these things and are afraid. And being afraid is the first step is to keep it for yourself. Don't do that.
No.
I think it's very liberating that you don't have to have the answers.
Thanks.
So in this whole, you have a responsibility, you might not need to have the answers.
No.
And we won't have the answers tomorrow either, but we will have lots of topics and talk about several aspects of this. And Joachim, you will come back as a co-moderator, as well as having your third session.
Yes.
Talk to us about tomorrow.
Tomorrow we are going to premiere yet another future scenario, which I'm very much looking forward to, a little bit more industry focused tomorrow. And then I'm going to teach another tool. So we learned about signals, driving forces, and today we talked about looking back to look forward. Tomorrow there will be a third tool, which will make you into better futurists, all of you.
We will graduate. We'll then get a diploma.
There might be a diploma.
And the theme for tomorrow is creating real impact. So we started out with the systemic, fundamental, foundational platform to stand on, where the agencies meet public, meet private, meet academia, the shoulders to stand on. Today has been collaboration, enablers, and the Swedish way, talking about different challenges and putting them in a mission context. And we've shared the secret sauce of the Swedish model. And it's been transparency, it's been trust, it's been collaboration. And tomorrow will be tangible, real examples, the real impact, and hopefully we will guide you through where we are 2023 in this transition. And I don't think we will have answers, and I don't think that's the point either.
No.
It's conversational and transparent.
Definitely. And there are a lot of good side events to check out as well.
Definitely. Yes. And you're coming back tomorrow?
I am.
Great.
Yes. I will end the day with you.
And we have a fireside chat coming after this. So stay tuned, short break, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you.